Chapter 854. Once Goodbye left, Tu Danjing was the only woman left. She looked at her husband and then secretly glanced at Song Qingshu. There was no need to mention how uncomfortable she felt. When she thought about how she had slept with these two men, she felt like she was sitting on pins and needles. She hurriedly found an excuse and said that she had to return to the residence to pay her respects to Buddha. Wan Yinliang had let her down last night and was feeling guilty, so he decided to accompany his wife back. "Your Highness, Princess, have a breakfast before you leave," Song Qingshu said with a smile that was not a smile. Wan Yinliang actually wanted to look at Goodbye again, but seeing that his wife had no intention of leaving, he smiled and refused. "There's no need to trouble yourself. We have already disturbed you for a long time. It just so happens that there is something going on in the residence, so we will return first. Let's meet again next time." He felt that he had benefited a lot from his conversation with Song Qingshu. He urgently needed to return to the residence to discuss with his trusted advisor, Xiao Yu, so he bid his farewell. He then stood up and said to Tu Danjing, "Xiao Jing, sit here for a while. I will go out and tell the servants to prepare the carriage." Tu Danjing couldn't help but panic when she thought about facing Song Qingshu alone. She was about to call out to her husband, but Wan Yinliang left too quickly. Before she could call out, he had already disappeared from the courtyard. Song Qingshu noticed her expression and couldn't help but smile. "Does Princess dislike being with me that much?" Tu Danjing's face turned red. "You know why? As the saying goes, a day as husband and wife means 100 days of love. Isn't Princess being too heartless now?" Song Qingshu moved and came to Tu Danjing's side. With the other party standing beside her, Tu Danjing felt that the sky had darkened, as if he had blocked most of the sunlight. She couldn't help but think about the oppressive aura from last night. Her chest started to heave up and down in excitement. "I have already said that our relationship was only limited to last night. Don't push your luck." After Tu Danjing finished speaking, she didn't want to be oppressed by the other party's aura and quickly stood up. "Princess, you are making me feel inferior," Song Qingshu said with a gloomy expression. "Why are you feeling inferior?" Tu Danjing could not hold back her curiosity and asked subconsciously. However, as soon as she asked, she regretted it. Why did she bother with this bastard? Song Qingshu took a step forward and came within 1 foot of her. His arms stretched out to hold her soft waist and pulled her into his embrace. He sighed. "Originally, I was very satisfied with the effect of last night and thought that Wang Fei would have a taste. I didn't think that Wang Fei would not have any reluctance to leave. That proves that I didn't make Wang Fei comfortable last night. How can I not feel inferior?" Tu Danjing did not expect him to be so bold as to hug her in broad daylight. For a moment, she was stunned and speechless. Their bodies were tightly pressed against each other. Separated by only 2 layers of clothing, she quickly felt the heat and hardness of the other's body. She couldn't help but feel ashamed and angry. "Do you want to die? His Highness will be back soon." As if in response to her words, Wan Yinliang's voice came from not far away. "Xiao Jing, the carriage is ready. Let's go." Hearing her husband's voice getting closer and closer, Tu Danjing panicked and hurriedly struggled. However, the other party's hands were like iron hoops, and she could not move at all. "What do you want?" Tu Danjing was really panicking. "Wang Fei, let me kiss you and I will let go." With Song Qingshu's cultivation, he knew that Wan Yinliang would need about 10 breaths of time to reach the courtyard. This was enough time for him to show off. Tu Danjing almost fainted from anger. At this critical moment, he still wanted to take advantage of her. Her husband was outside, and she did not dare to agree. However, if she did not agree, the other party would not let go. If her husband saw the two of them hugging each other, she would be finished. Seeing Tu Danjing's face turning red and white, Song Qingshu quickly said, "If Wang Fei hesitates, His Highness will be here soon. Quickly kiss me." Tu Danjing did not care so much. She raised her chin and revealed her rosy lips to the other party. Seeing her closed eyelashes trembling slightly, Song Qingshu knew that she must be very scared at this moment. He laughed and lowered his head to kiss her. Perhaps it was because her husband would appear soon, Tu Danjing felt that this kiss made her soul tremble. It was as if there was an electric current flowing through her body. It was so numb that it made her heart palpitate. "Little Jing, Brother Tanqua, what are you doing?" At this time, Wan Yinliang's puzzled voice came from the courtyard entrance. It's over, he saw us." Tu Danjing's legs went soft. If it was not for Song Qingshu's embrace, she would not have been able to stand. Song Qingshu let go of Tu Danjing and smiled at Wan Yinliang and said, "It's nothing. Wang Fei had sand in her eyes just now, so I helped her take a look." Tu Danjing somewhat admired this man. He could be said to be extremely daring. Even at this time, he was still able to tell a lie without blushing or palpitating. But to her surprise, Wan Yinliang did not suspect anything. Instead, he ran over with a face full of concern. "Little Jing, are you okay?" I'm fine." Tu Danjing looked at Song Qingshu with a puzzled expression. She did not know what kind of magic he used. Did her husband not see what happened just now? Song Qingshu secretly winked at her, causing Tu Danjing to hurriedly look away. "Your Highness, I'm not feeling well. Let's go back quickly." Okay. Wan Yinliang did not worry about her and reached out to hold her hand. However, Tu Danjing felt guilty and subconsciously avoided his hand. "Let me see you out," Song Qingshu said. Wan Yinliang hurriedly waved his hand. No need. Brother Tanqua, please wait a moment. Your wife did not rest well last night. You should go and comfort her." As he spoke, he winked at Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu sneered inwardly and stopped walking. "Since that's the case, I won't send you off. Take care." At this time, Tu Danjing's heart was in a mess. She did not have the time to complain about her husband. It was only when she and Wan Yinliang passed by the entrance of the small courtyard that she could not help but look back curiously. Only then did she discover the secret just now. It turned out that from this angle, Song Qingshu's burly body and the cloak behind him blocked most of the situation in the pavilion. Just now, when she was in his arms, her whole body was blocked by his back. No wonder her husband did not notice anything unusual. A big stone was lifted from her heart. Tu Danjing began to recall the soul-stirring kiss just now. Her lips involuntarily curled into a smile. This bastard is really daring. Chapter 855. Tu Danjing suppressed this thought as soon as it came into her mind. Coming from a big family, she knew better than anyone that marriage was more important than love. Moreover, the relationship between her and Wan Yinliang was love. What happened between her and Tang Quobian could only be called a beautiful misunderstanding. Tu Danjing was worried along the way and unknowingly returned to the residence. As soon as they arrived, Wan Yinliang pulled her to the bedroom. Tu Danjing finally reacted and asked, "What does your highness want?" Wan Yinliang chuckled. "Little Jing, let's have some intimate time." It turned out that he had been thinking about the scene of Tang Quobian pressing down on his wife last night. The more he thought about it, the more uncomfortable he felt. However, his body could not help but become excited. Whenever he thought about how his wife's body must be a mess, his mouth became even more parched. As soon as they got home, he hugged Tu Danjing and wanted to have some intimate time with her. Tu Danjing naturally did not understand her husband's perverted mind. She thought about how she had done something wrong to her husband with another man last night. Now that her body was in a mess, wouldn't everything be exposed if she had intimate time with her husband? She did not dare to agree. Moreover, she did not know why she did not want her husband to touch her body. She hurriedly thought of all kinds of excuses and finally succeeded in dispelling her husband's thoughts. Watching his wife's figure in the bath, Wan Yinliang suppressed a ball of evil fire in his heart. However, he knew that business was more important, so he temporarily put it aside and hurriedly sent someone to summon his trusted aide, Xiao Yu. Hearing Wan Yinliang talk about his conversation with Tang Quobian, Xiao Yu's eyes flashed and could not help but praise. "I used to think that Tang Quobian was a simple-minded boor. I did not expect him to be so talented. This plan of killing two birds with one stone is really wonderful. As long as we do it properly, not only can we get rid of the Changshan King, our biggest opponent, but we can also take the opportunity to clip the Emperor's wings and make him completely isolated." Wan Yinliang was overjoyed. Even you think this plan is feasible? Although this plan is ingenious, but Xiao Yu suddenly revealed a look of hesitation. I am more worried about Tang Kuobian. After all, he is the emperor's brother-in-law and the emperor's son-in-law. I do not understand why he would help your highness. I can't help it. Wan Yinliang laughed. You don't need to worry about this. I have no doubt about Tang Kuobian's loyalty. Why is your highness so certain? As Wan Yinliang's chief strategist, Xiao Yu understood his lord's intentions. If he wasn't careful, his entire family would be exterminated. He had no choice but to be cautious. I can't tell you the exact reason. All you need to know is that Tang Kuobian and I are in the same boat. Wan Yinliang's face heated up. What happened last night was too unethical. He didn't dare to tell a third person. Since your highness is so sure, then this subordinate will not ask any further. Although Xiao Yu is still suspicious, he believed in Wan Yinliang's judgment. Although his master was a bit licentious, he was an expert in both literature and martial arts. It wouldn't be easy to fool him. How do you think we should operate this plan of killing two birds with one stone? Wan Yinliang also had a rough idea in his mind, but there were still many details that needed to be perfected by him, who was known as Xiao Zhuge. Xiao Yu pondered for a moment, then said, This subordinate believes that we should do two things at once. First, we should send people to transfer away the core members of the laundry brothel. Then, we should send experts to kidnap the song princesses. The head of the laundry brothel is the chief minister of the imperial household, the Xinghua. However, he has to be by the emperor's side at all times, so the daily affairs of the laundry brothel are managed by the emperor's sister, Princess Wan Yinping of the state of Qi. With the assistance of Pucha Shiji and Pusan Hutu, these three can be said to be the central leaders of the laundry brothel. As long as the three of them are transferred away, the laundry brothel will be like a group of dragons without a leader. In the face of an attack, they won't be able to effectively organize their forces and won't be a threat. Wan Yinliang asked, How can we transfer them away? According to what this prince knows, the three of them are impenetrable and loyal to the emperor. It will be difficult to bribe them. Everyone has a weakness, Xiao Yu said with a confident expression. Pucha Shiji's weakness is with his sister. As long as we make use of Pucha Qiucao, it won't be difficult to transfer him away. As for Pusan Hutu, he is filial and can use his widowed mother to transfer him away. According to the rules of the laundry brothel, one person must stay in the brothel. Thus, after successfully transferring two people, it will be almost impossible to transfer Wan Yinping away. Wan Yinliang was startled at first, but then he laughed and said, Since you're saying this, you must have a plan? Of course. Xiao Yu stroked his goatee. Wan Yinping has a ruthless and unruly personality and is also the emperor's sister. She should have no weaknesses, but women can't avoid love. According to what I know, she seems to have an ambiguous relationship with her brother-in-law, Tang Kuobian. When the time comes, we can use Tang Kuobian's name to successfully transfer her away. Wan Yinliang thought about how Wan Yinping had come to the Fu early in the morning to find Tang Kuobian and couldn't help but nod to himself. There's definitely something going on between them. Haha, that Tang Kuobian is really lucky to have picked up such a beautiful pair of sisters. Last night, this prince sacrificed his consort. No matter what, I must earn them back. At this time, Wan Yinliang had already made up his mind to ask Tang Kuobian to exchange Wan Yinping as soon as he had the chance. Tang Kuobian had even offered his wife, Songbi, so he didn't believe that he would be reluctant to part with his sister-in-law. TSK. If he could put these two sisters on the same bed, that would be great. Xiao Yu didn't know that his lord had already sunk into endless fantasies and continued to perfect the whole plan. I can be sure that after the incident, Shizong will definitely investigate their negligence, so we need to deliberately leave some clues that point to Chang Xinguang. After successfully drawing the three of them away, Your Highness can ask Mr. Ouyang and the other experts of the imperial family to attack the laundry brothel and kidnap those Song dynasty princesses. After such a disastrous failure, the laundry brothel will naturally lose His Majesty's trust, and Pucha and Shiji will definitely be severely punished by His Majesty. At that time, Your Highness can take the opportunity to rope them in and remove His Majesty's eyes in the capital. While Wan Yinliang and Xiao Yu were scheming in the Fu, Song Qingshu had already changed into Xiao Xingwo's appearance and quietly slipped into the palace. After all, he had to inform Empress Pei Man, the yellow-robed woman, and the others in case they panicked and did something stupid when they were investigated by the laundry brothel. Since the Empress Palace was heavily guarded after the incident, Song Qingshu decided to first find a yellow-robed woman to understand the situation. As a result, just as he arrived at the door of Xiao Xingwo's residence, the yellow-robed woman came out of the room dressed as a palace maid and bumped into his arms. End of this chapter. Chapter 856. The yellow-robed woman was shocked. When she went out, she was worried that she would be seen by the people of the palace and cause unnecessary trouble. So she used her chi to feel around. After confirming that there was no one at the door, she came out. Now that she had bumped into someone, it meant that the other person was an expert among experts. Her hands were faster than her thoughts. Her 5 slender fingers glowed with a crystalline light as she grabbed at the person's throat. Song Qingshu was also very depressed. Originally, with a warm and fragrant body in his arms, he had wanted to tease her a little. Who would have thought that the other party would use a ruthless 9-in white bone claw? The angle of the claw was incomparably crafty, and it instantly appeared at his throat. With the yellow-robed woman's cultivation, the number of people in Jianghu who could dodge this attack at such a close distance could be counted on one hand. However, her luck was not good enough. The person she encountered was Song Qingshu, and, for all greater than over equal to P, in the rush, Song Qingshu did not have time to think. He tilted his head back and took advantage of the moment when the other person's claw missed and her chi was not flowing smoothly. He raised his hand and swept at the numbing acupuncture point on the other person's elbow. The yellow-robed woman's hands immediately went limp. Song Qingshu did not dare to be careless. He knew that the 9-in white bone claw would follow up with wave after wave. How could he let the other person continue? His hands unhesitatingly went to the acupuncture point on the other person's chest. All of these actions were instinctive reactions from Song Qingshu. He only realized what had happened when he felt a shocking softness in his hands. It's you. The yellow-robed woman had already seen Song Qingshu's appearance, and her entire body froze. Sorry. This is all a misunderstanding. Song Qingshu quickly released his hands and raised them. I'm going to kill you. The yellow-robed woman suddenly exploded and attacked him with a frosty face. Song Qingshu dodged as he called out, Miss Yang, it really was a misunderstanding. I really did not mean it. Who knew that the other person would not pay attention to him and would use the powerful martial arts from the 9-in manual to attack. What happened? Zhao Fujin, who was in the house, heard the commotion and hurriedly ran out to check. When he saw his sister and Song Qingshu fighting, he was stunned. Upon seeing her, Song Qingshu felt as though he had seen his savior. His figure flashed as he hid behind her and quickly said, Your sister wants to kill me. The girl in yellow's face was as calm as still water. She ignored him and continued to attack him. Who would have thought that Song Qingshu would be so shameless? He put his hands on Zhao Fujin's shoulders and changed her direction from time to time to act as a shield. The girl in yellow knew that her sister did not know martial arts and was afraid of hurting her, so she quickly stopped. Her eyes were filled with anger as she glared at Song Qingshu, the one with the surname Song. You are also a master of your generation. How can you be so shameless? If you have the ability, come out and fight with me. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly and said, It's not that I'm afraid of fighting you. It's just that it's meaningless for us to fight to the death. Inglua, what's going on? Zhao Fujin was also confused by the situation and couldn't help but give a humph. The moment the girl in yellow opened her mouth, her face turned red. At this time, she could still feel the sore and numb feeling coming from her chest. She couldn't help but give a humph. Ask him yourself. Facing Zhao Fujin's confused gaze, Song Qingshu hurriedly explained, Just now, There was a misunderstanding between Miss Yang and I. That's it. It's just that my hand accidentally grabbed Miss Yang's chest. When Zhao Fujin heard this, she rolled her eyes. No wonder her sister was so angry. For a young lady to have her chest touched by a man, anyone would be angry. However, after this period of interaction, she believed in Song Qingshu's character. She knew that he would not do such a dirty thing on purpose. So she decided to be the peacemaker between the two. Ing Luo, Prince Song has already said that he didn't do it on purpose. He has also apologized to you, so don't take it to heart. Fifth sister, you don't know martial arts. That's why you were tricked by him. The girl in yellow stomped her feet. I'm not an unreasonable person. If he really did accidentally touch it, based on our relationship over the past few days, I wouldn't pursue the matter. However, in the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, every move he made perfectly countered mine. It was obvious that he had carefully planned it out to deal with me. That last move, how could it be unintentional? Song Qingshu finally understood why she was so angry and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Miss Yang, you've really misunderstood. That's right, I've created these moves a long time ago. However, it wasn't a deal with you. It was a game I played with Zhuo in the bedroom. You also know that she knows the 9-in white bone claw. Sometimes when she gets bullied by me, she can't help but use the 9-in white bone claw to scratch me. Of course, I don't want to be outdone, so I created this breast-grabbing dragon claw to break her. Seeing the two girls' strange gazes, Song Qingshu smiled embarrassedly. The name is a bit vulgar, but don't mind the details. Just now, when Miss Yang suddenly attacked me, I didn't have time to react and could only subconsciously counterattack. That's why I accidentally offended Miss Yang. I swear, I really didn't mean to offend you. The girl in yellow's pretty face alternated between red and white. In fact, after calming down, she knew that Song Qingshu didn't lie to her. However, thinking about how she had suffered such a big loss, she was extremely angry. She even hated Zhuo. Humph, this woman really doesn't know shame. She actually blasphemed the divine skill and used it on her husband. Seeing that she didn't speak, Song Qingshu continued. If Miss Yang still doesn't feel satisfied, I can let you catch me back. This way, we'll be even, right? As he said this, he stuck out his chest. Go dot. The girl in yellow almost fainted from anger. Zhao Fujin, who was at the side, also looked at him reproachfully. This Prince Song was really too much. How could this debt be settled like this? All right, let's shake hands and make up. In the future, no one is allowed to mention this matter again. Zhao Fujin saw that although his sister was angry, she didn't have any intention of making a move. He took the opportunity to change the topic. Prince Song, you came to the palace in such a hurry to find us. Did something happen? Yes, Song Qingshu nodded. I received news that the washing clothes yard has begun to investigate what happened that night. I was worried about Hu Er and Yuan's safety, so I came to the palace to take a look. Speaking of business, the girl in yellow's voice also returned to normal. Last night, the washing clothes yard had just interrogated the people of Wei Wang Fu and the guards of Hall of Peace and Harmony that night. Hu Er and Yuan's identities are special, so they were temporarily protected by Empress Peiman. However, I'm afraid that in a day or two, she won't be able to protect herself. If the washing clothes yard finds out that Wei Wang didn't drink when he entered the palace, then they'll be in danger. You were in such a hurry just now. Where were you planning to go? Song Qingshu asked curiously. Hearing him mention the matter just now, the girl in yellow glared at him in annoyance before answering, I was planning to find Empress Peiman to discuss a way to deal with this. Song Qingshu looked her up and down, his expression a little strange. Then why are you dressed like this? The girl in yellow was currently dressed like a palace maid. Compared to her usual frosty appearance, she now looked much more delicate and charming. Being stared at by Song Qingshu, the girl in yellow blushed slightly and hurriedly moved her body to the side. After what happened that night, the security of Hall of Peace and Harmony has become much tighter. There are sentries every 3 steps, and there's a guard every 5 steps. Even a fly can't get in. That's why I dressed like a palace maid and tried to see if I could sneak in. Chapter 8, 57. Why? The yellow-robed woman was startled. She and her older sister had spent a long time making this outfit. The two of them were confident that compared to the other palace maids, there was no difference. Song Qing's gaze fell on her snow-white cheeks, and he couldn't help but smile. How can palace maids be this beautiful? If there really were such beautiful palace maids, they would have long been taken in by the emperor as a palace master. How could the guards not recognize them? Then what do you think we should do? Even though her painstakingly dressed up had been rejected by him, hearing Song Qing praise her beauty, the yellow-robed woman's cheeks blushed. We'll use Qing Gong to fly in, Song Qing said with a relaxed expression. Qing Gong. The yellow-robed woman's eyebrows furrowed. I have to remind you that the palace is surrounded by guards. No matter how good your Qing Gong is, it is impossible to sneak in without alerting them. That's because your Qing Gong is not good enough. Song Qing's words almost angered the yellow-robed woman half to death. Looking at the fuming yellow-robed woman, he pulled her up. Let's go. Go where? The yellow-robed woman did not have any reaction as her hand was pulled by him. In this period of time, if it wasn't her clothes being taken off, her breasts would be grabbed. Compared to that, holding hands was too innocent. Even the yellow-robed woman did not realize there was anything wrong with it. Of course, we're going to the Hall of Peaceful Harmony. Song Qing turned around and waved at Zhao Fujin. Fifth sister will be leaving first. With that said, he pulled the yellow-robed woman and flew towards the Hall of Peaceful Harmony. Even though the yellow-robed woman already knew that Song Qing's Qing Gong was very high, she did not expect it to be this high. Originally, she had wanted to use Qing Gong to reduce the other's burden, but who knew that after a few steps, she would stagger. If it wasn't for Song Qing holding her waist, she would have fallen to the ground in an extremely ugly position. Relax your whole body. Just hold me. Song Qing turned around and smiled gently at her. The yellow-robed woman's heart inexplicably jumped at a smile. This bastard sometimes did not seem so hateful. Feeling the other's strong arms, the yellow-robed woman's body stiffened at first, but she quickly softened. She knew that he wasn't trying to take advantage of her, and she wouldn't fight him to the death over such a small matter. In fact, she herself did not realize that she had changed. If it was in the past, even if others did not have any evil thoughts, she would not even let a man touch the corner of her clothes. After spending some time with Song Qing, her tolerance was getting lower and lower. Soon, the yellow-robed woman was no longer in the mood to let her imagination run wild, because she was already somewhat unable to open her eyes due to the oncoming wind. She knew that this was because the two of them were moving too fast. She could not help but exclaim in her heart, "Not to mention that I can't reach such a speed. Even if I can, I won't be able to open my eyes." Her eyes were extremely uncomfortable from the wind. The yellow-robed woman could not help but bury her face in Song Qing's chest. This made her feel much better. She could vaguely hear the heartbeat coming from his chest, and a faint blush gradually appeared on her snow-white skin. After an unknown period of time, the yellow-robed woman glanced at a corner of the Hall of Tranquility not too far away. She couldn't help but remind him, "The Hall of Tranquility is almost here. Do you plan to just barge in like this?" "Yes, I'll just barge in like this." Just as Song Qing finished speaking, the yellow-robed woman felt the wind in front of her disappear. She could not help but raise her head in curiosity, and then she was stunned by the scene in front of her. Everything in the surroundings seemed to have become still. Not far away, the butterflies in the bushes remained suspended in the air, not flapping their wings at all. The guards surrounding the Hall of Peace and Harmony seemed to have collectively turned into statues. Some of them had their eyes wide open, while others had their eyes half closed. Regardless of which, none of them made any further movements. It was as if all of their movements had been frozen in place. The yellow-robed woman had a confused illusion. Song Qing was holding her as if they were taking a stroll in the courtyard, but they had clearly only taken a few steps, yet they had traversed a distance of several dozen zhang. It was as if the guards were blind, not noticing that two people had openly barged into the hall. "How did you do it?" The yellow-robed woman glanced at the courtyard. Not a single one of the guards turned around. "If you give me a kiss, I can consider telling you." Song Qing said with a grin, but the sweat on his forehead showed that he was not as relaxed as he appeared on the surface. Go to hell. The yellow-robed woman blushed and spat. After being ridiculed by him, she also forgot to continue asking questions. Just like that, the two of them entered Empress Pei Man's bedroom together. After the incident with Wei Wang that night, in addition to the investigation by the laundry yard, Empress Pei Man simply expelled all the eunuchs and maids, leaving only Zhao Huer and Zhao Yuanyuan by her side. Today, she was teaching the two young maids how to deal with the interrogation of the laundry yard when she suddenly heard the commotion outside. She could not help but secretly feel angry. Just which blind servant had barged in at this time? Just as she was about to scold the intruder, she saw Song Qing's appearance. Empress Pei Man's anger immediately turned into surprise. You're here. The two young maids also saw their appearance and excitedly rushed over to Song Qing. Big Brother Song, when they found out that Song Qing and their elder sister did not have that kind of relationship, they did not hesitate to change the way they addressed him. After all, they had done that kind of thing with Song Qing and subconsciously thought of themselves as his women. Naturally, they did not want their lover to become their brother-in-law. The yellow-robed woman watched from the side and rolled her eyes. These two girls were really heartless. For so long, they kept pulling Song Qing to please him and did not even greet her. All these years, she had been busy trying to save them from the abyss of suffering. Although Song Qing hadn't spent much time with Zhao Huan and the others, and they didn't have any feelings for each other, he was still very satisfied to be gazed at by these two beautiful girls. After all, who didn't have the vanity of a man? After comforting the two frightened young maids, Song Qing threw them to the yellow-robed woman and walked over to Empress Pei Man. Looking at your highness' complexion, it seems that you are in a good mood. Empress Pei Man covered her mouth and smiled tenderly. Originally, I was not in a good mood, but seeing that young master has arrived, my mood suddenly became as bright as the sun. After not seeing you for a few days, your highness' mouth has become so sweet. Song Qing did not have the self-awareness of being a guest and sat down next to her. He plucked a grape from the fruit platter and tossed it into his mouth. If young master wants to eat grapes, there is no need to do it yourself. Empress Pei Man raised her white finger and skillfully peeled a grape and brought it to his mouth. The grapes that your highness peels seem to be a bit sweeter. After crushing the grape, the juice flowed onto Pei Man's finger. Song Qing took advantage of this and licked it, causing the other to giggle. Not far away, the yellow-robed woman could not bear to watch any longer and coldly interrupted. Are you two done flirting? If you are, then let's get down to business. Yo, little sister Yang is jealous? For some reason, hearing Empress Pei Man's coquettish voice, the yellow-robed woman felt a wave of displeasure. Noticing the change in the yellow-robed woman's expression, Song Qing knew that if he continued to provoke her, she would probably explode. Smiling, he said, Fine, let's get down to business. I know that the laundry yard is currently investigating what happened that night, but you don't need to worry. I already have a solution. What solution? Empress Pei Man had been having a headache over this matter every day. Hearing him say this, she was pleasantly surprised. Prince Song is truly my lucky star. Song Qing was about to reply when he suddenly thought of something. He frowned and calmly looked at Empress Pei Man. Before I speak, I need your highness to honestly answer a question of mine. Empress Pei Man charmingly smiled. Young master, please ask. I will definitely tell you everything I know. Did the Sea Ling King once go to your bed? Song Qing stared at her. Empress Pei Man's smile immediately froze. Why would you ask this? Song Qing said in a low voice. You only need to answer yes or no. So in young master's heart, I am a woman who can marry anyone. Empress Pei Man faintly sighed. I am a dignified empress. How could I bring about my own destruction to become friends with a prince? Besides the emperor, young master is my only man. The yellow-clothed woman looked at Song Qing with surprise. She was proficient in the 9E manual. So how could she not see that Song Qing had used the soul-shifting technique? She had thought it was strange that he would use such an important method to ask Pei Man, but after hearing their conversation, she couldn't help but feel annoyed. This bastard really doesn't know what he's talking about, asking this kind of question at a time like this. Song Qing revealed a surprised expression. He had heard Madame Tang say that Wan Yinliang and Empress Peiman had something going on, so he had to be on guard. After all, he had used Wan Yinliang this time. If Empress Peiman and Wan Yinliang had something going on, then once the truth was revealed to Wan Yinliang, he would be in trouble. Now that Peiman had unknowingly fallen for his soul-shifting technique, the answer must be the truth. But this was the strange part. Madame Tang had no reason to lie to him. So what was going on? Song Qing thought for a long time, but couldn't figure it out. So he tossed this question to the side. In any case, it was enough to ensure that there was no secret between Empress Peiman and Wan Yinliang. Then, Song Qing removed the soul-shifting technique from Peiman and revealed his plan to use Wan Yinliang. The four women's eyes lit up as they listened. There's finally a scapegoat for what happened that night. Empress Peiman felt relieved. Those pitiful sisters can finally be saved. Seeing that the success of her many years of hard work was imminent, the yellow-clothed woman was also overjoyed. As for Zhao Huer and Zhao Yuanyuan, they looked at Song Qing with infatuation, thinking that their lover was the most capable man in the world. At the Su Prince's residence in the capital. Princess, isn't tomorrow's plan a little too risky? Prince Su, Wan Yinyong, looked at the incomparably beautiful woman in front of him and couldn't help but sigh. He had seen many beauties, but every time he saw her, he was stunned. Chapter 858. Early the next morning, Pucha Shiji was patrolling the laundry yard. Ever since the incident with the Wei King, the security in the palace had become several times stricter than usual. Suddenly, a guard ran in from outside and whispered something into his ear. Pucha Shiji's eyes widened like a cow's. What? That bastard dares to bully my sister. He's courting death. With that, he hurriedly ran out of the palace. When he reached the entrance of the laundry yard, he suddenly hesitated for a moment. But when he remembered that the Qi Kingdom's princess and Fu Sanhutu were still here, he didn't have to worry anymore and hurriedly ran out. Their status in the laundry yard was special, so they didn't need to ask for permission like normal soldiers. They could leave and stay as they pleased, so they didn't need to ask for leave. Of course, there were people who knew their limits and were loyal to their duties. They wouldn't slack off like normal people. Not long after Pucha Shiji left, Fu Sanhutu, who was working in another room, also received a note. When he saw that something had happened to his mother, his expression changed. He hurriedly gave some instructions to his subordinates and left in a hurry. After a while, Wan Yinping, who was interrogating a criminal in her room, also received a letter. She was very displeased at the sudden intrusion, and her face was as cold as ice. However, when she saw that the contents of the letter were from her brother-in-law, inviting her to meet him at the usual place outside the city, Wan Yinping immediately smiled sweetly. That moment was like the first melting of ice and snow. When had the subordinates ever seen this demoness show such a ladylike expression? They were all dumbfounded. When Wan Yinping raised her head, she noticed the gazes of her subordinates and couldn't help but blush. She purposely put on a straight face. What are you looking at? Although she put on a straight face, her tone was no longer as fierce as usual. Thinking of her brother-in-law inviting her to meet him at the usual place outside the city, Wan Yinping couldn't help but think of the scene of the two of them being intimate in the valley that night. Her face quickly heated up and her heart was in turmoil. This brother-in-law actually invited me there, even though she felt that she had let her sister down. When she thought of how her sister had also let her brother-in-law down, Wan Yinping didn't feel so guilty. After hesitating for a while, Wan Yinping temporarily stopped working on the case at hand. Although her brother was urging her, compared to meeting her lover, it didn't matter if she delayed the case a little. At this time, Song Qing and the yellow-robed woman were hiding in the dense foliage of a large tree near the laundry yard. Watching the three of them leave, Song Qing laughed and said, Wan Yinliang's plan has succeeded. Ouyang Feng and the others should be here soon. The yellow-robed woman didn't reply to him. Instead, she looked playfully at Wan Yinping's light footsteps as she left. I've long heard that Wan Yin Ping is a cold-blooded demoness. But now, she looks like a young girl yearning for love. She left with a face full of sweetness and anticipation. I wonder who her lover is? Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. He smiled awkwardly and said, "How would I know?" "Really?" The yellow-robed woman deliberately lengthened the syllable. She looked at him with a smile that wasn't a smile. "But if I remember correctly, this Wan Yin Ping should be someone's sister-in-law. Brother-in-law and sister-in-law. TSK, TSK. Some people really have good methods." Because of what happened to her sisters in the past, the yellow-robed woman hated men who didn't respect women the most. When she first met Song Qingshu at the Shaolin Temple, because of Song Qingshu's reputation as a playboy in Jianghu, the yellow-robed woman not only didn't have a good impression of him, it could be said that she loathed him. Who knew that this time? Because of a freak combination of factors, the yellow-robed woman had to admit that she had some prejudice against Song Qingshu. Although this man was greedy and lustful, he was very capable. Moreover, his character was also not bad. Therefore, the yellow-robed woman's tone was more playful than before. It wasn't as angry as before. Hearing the yellow-robed woman's teasing, Song Qingshu didn't mind at all. Instead, he teased, "Of course, brother-in-law and sister-in-law are all men's dreams. This is human nature. Speaking of which, Hu and Yuan, those two girls are also my sisters-in-law." The yellow-robed woman didn't expect to get herself into trouble. She couldn't help but spit. "I haven't settled the score with you for pretending to be their brother-in-law. Humph. Even if I want to marry someone someday, I won't marry a playboy like you. If you want to be my husband, you can do in your next life." Song Qingshu shrugged nonchalantly. "It's fine in the next life. Anyway, I have enough love debts in this life. Putting you in the next life is just nice for me to be able to continue developing." Hearing such a reply, the yellow-robed woman didn't know why she only felt suffocated. She directly turned her head to the other side, and her expression suddenly became ugly. "Angry?" Song Qingshu leaned over and said, "In fact, in this life, we are not unrelated. What kind of relationship?" Although the yellow-robed woman didn't want to pay attention to him, she couldn't help being curious. "After I marry Hu and Yuan in the future, you will be my sister-in-law." After saying that, Song Qingshu hid to the side and stared at her with a smile. "Who wants to be your sister-in-law?" The yellow-robed woman suddenly blushed and said, "It sounds so bad. It's not up to you. Anyway, Hu and Yuan have already chosen me." Song Qingshu said cheekily. "Umph, they're just young and haven't had much contact with the world. When they return to Lin, I don't know how many princes and young talents are waiting for them to choose. Don't you overestimate your charm?" The yellow-robed woman snorted softly. Song Qingshu shook his head indifferently and said, "My relationship with them has reached that point. How can they find other men?" Thinking of the two girls' thin and soft lips that night, Song Qingshu felt a fire burning in his belly. The yellow-robed woman's expression slightly changed, and she raised her voice. "What did you do to them?" Song Qingshu hastily put a hand on her lips and said in a low voice, "Be quiet. The situation has changed." The yellow-robed woman turned her head and was shocked to find that the guards of the laundry yard seemed to be possessed. One by one, they collapsed to the ground. "What's going on?" "Oh." The yellow-robed woman realized that the other's hand was still on her lips, and she slapped his hand away in panic. Song Qingshu shook his head. "I'm not too sure. These people seem to have been poisoned. Could it be that Ouyang Feng has come?" At this time, he couldn't help but be glad that Wan Yin Ping had been transferred away. Otherwise, who knew if she would be in danger if she had been poisoned? Chapter 859. During this period of time, she and Song Qingshu had been imagining the experts in Wan Yin Liang's mansion as enemies. Naturally, they had studied Ouyang Feng and the other's characteristics. At their level, they would not bother to disguise themselves, let alone dress like these black-clothed men. The yellow-robed woman's heart suddenly stirred. She turned her head and looked at Song Qingshu. "In this world, I'm afraid there's only one person who has such a high level of cultivation but is so shameless and has no moral integrity." Song Qingshu, however, had no time to care about her at this time. His attention was completely focused on the child with rosy lips and white teeth who came in after him. He gently waved his white, jade folding fan. His fingers were whiter than the fan ribs, and his eyes were filled with the unique charm of a woman. Who else could it be other than Commandery Princess Zhao Min, whom he had not seen for a long time? But why would she appear in the Jin Kingdom? Cut the crap. Hurry up and bring those women out. Zhao Min looked worriedly outside. According to her original plan, she was going to catch everyone in the washroom in one fell swoop. She hadn't expected that Wan Yin Ping and the other two had gone out for some reason. This unexpected change gave her a bad feeling. Why is Zhao Min here? The yellow-robed woman also whispered. She had also seen Zhao Min at the lion slaughtering convention. Song Qingshu shook his head and didn't reply. He just looked at the beautiful girl from afar. Even after not seeing her for a while, she was still as dazzling as ever. Noticing his gaze, the yellow-robed woman instantly felt uncomfortable and couldn't help but snort. Stop looking. I'm Cult Master Zhang's woman. Song Qingshu laughed involuntarily. Miss Yang, your information is a bit too outdated. The yellow-robed woman had a puzzled expression. Zhang Jiaozhu and she are a perfect couple, and they are in love with each other. They are a match made in heaven. What problem could there be? Her expression suddenly changed. You and she won't? At this time, Zhao Min's subordinates had taken control of the washroom guards and brought out the Song princesses. The yellow-robed woman didn't have time to guess what had happened between Song Qingshu and Zhao Min. Just as she was about to act, Song Qingshu hurriedly pulled her back. Wait a bit, it's not time yet. The yellow-robed woman took a deep breath and nodded slightly. She was not a reckless person. Just now, she was just worried and impulsive. She calmed down after being stopped by Song Qingshu. Reporting to Princess, other than the Song princesses, there are other people in the prison. Hearing the subordinate's report, Zhao Min said lightly, kill them all. This time, it was Song Qingshu's turn to be anxious. Song Yuanxiao and the others were still imprisoned inside. Just as he was about to rush down, he was pulled back by the yellow-robed woman. Don't worry, we have already removed the drunk rouge from Hero Song and the others. With their martial arts, Zhao Min's subordinates won't be able to hurt them. Only then did Song Qingshu remember that he had sneaked into the washroom last night to remove the poison from Song Yuanxiao and the others. At the same time, the two sides also discussed some details of today's operation. Sure enough, the screams of the men in black came from the room. Zhao Min's expression changed slightly. What happened? Reporting to Princess, there are 3 experts in the prison. Our brothers were caught off guard and suffered a great loss. A subordinate had already returned to report. Who are they? Zhao Min frowned slightly. According to the information she had received, there shouldn't be any experts inside. Even if there were experts, their martial arts would have been crippled by the washroom's drunk rouge. How could they still have the strength to resist? Princess Zhao Min, I didn't think we would meet again. Song Yuanxiao and the other 2 had already taken advantage of the chaos to charge out. When they saw Zhao Min's appearance, they couldn't help but remember the humiliation of being imprisoned at Eternal Peace Temple. Their old faces immediately became unsightly. Song Yuanxiao, recognizing the identity of the 3, Zhao Min was also stunned. Princess, these defeated people are not worth mentioning. Let us brothers capture these cowardly noses. Seeing that the men in black were no match for Song Yuanxiao and the other 2, the Xianming elders hurriedly volunteered. Zhao Min finally came to her senses and hurriedly shouted, all of you stop. Hearing the order, the men in black hurriedly retreated to the side. Song Yuanxiao and the other 2 did not understand and also put away their weapons. However, they were secretly on guard. What tricks are you playing? Zhao Min's eyebrows slightly twitched when she heard the other party call her demoness. However, she quickly composed herself and said to the 3 of them with a charming smile, Great Hero Song, we didn't come for you this time. It's just a misunderstanding. Oh, how about this? This lady can be considered to be old friends with your Wudong. For that person's sake, I will temporarily let you off today. Hearing this, Yin Lighting asked with a face full of doubt, wasn't there a rumor that you and Wuji had a falling out? Zhang Song, she smiled strangely at the side. Sixth brother, to think that you're married. It's just two young lovers having a falling out. Miss Zhao is a smart person. How could she offend us future elders? Zhao Min's face immediately turned cold. Hero Zhang, be careful of the trouble that comes from the mouth. I have already broken all ties with Zhang Wuji. This time, I did not come for his sake, so you don't need to make wild guesses. Song Yuan Xiao was also startled. If it's not for Wuji's sake, could it be that it's for my Qingshu's sake? Miss Zhao, you don't need to do this. We Wudong sect members do not simply owe favors to others. When he mentioned Song Qingshu, he had only casually mentioned it. He had not thought about it in that direction. Who would have known that the casual remark would have a deeper meaning in the listener's mind? Zhao Min's jade cheeks turned slightly red, and she somewhat angrily said, Why do you care who I'm giving face to? Are we leaving or not? Hiding in the tree, the yellow-robed woman looked at Song Qingshu with a face full of amazement. Her gaze made his hair stand on end, and he couldn't help but say, Why are you looking at me like that? The yellow-robed woman faintly sighed. Although I already knew that you were a playboy by nature, I still underestimated your ability to hook up with women. Even someone like Zhao Min couldn't escape from your evil clutches. This has truly opened my eyes. Evil clutches? Song Qingshu's face was gloomy. I say, miss, are you praising me or insulting me? Besides, who told you that I hooked up with Zhao Min? Because I'm not blind. The yellow-robed woman wrinkled her nose. Since Zhao Min isn't doing this for Zhang Wuji, then in the entire Wudong sect, besides you, could it be that the old men are worthy of her attention? Song Qingshu also felt a little proud at his heart, but he spoke modestly. Me and Zhao Min are just ordinary friends, ordinary friends. Ordinary friends? The yellow-robed woman subconsciously shifted her body. I think it's better for me to stay away from you. Otherwise, if I'm not careful and fall into your trap like Zhao Min, I won't even have a place to cry. It's just that I really don't understand. Back then, she was so close to Zhang Wuji, so why would she fall for you? Song Qingshu said in a bad mood. That's because I can take someone's chastity from 1,000 miles away. That should be fine, right? Regarding the matter of Zhang Wuji, he didn't intend to tell her. After all, this matter was closely related to Zhao Min, so without her consent, it really wasn't convenient to say anything. The yellow-robed woman's face turned bright red from his words, and she couldn't help but spit out scornfully, A dog's mouth can't spit out ivory. While the two of them were fooling around on the tree, Song Yuan Xiao, who was below, cupped his hands to Zhao Min. Many thanks for Miss Zhao's good intentions, but we still have a presumptuous request. Zhao Min noticed that their gazes would occasionally sweep over the Song dynasty princesses, and she had already guessed most of it. She couldn't help but snort. Since it's a presumptuous request, then there's no need to say it. Song Yuan Xiao was given the cold shoulder, but his self-restraint was excellent, so he didn't get angry. He continued, Could Miss Zhao be magnanimous and let these women go? Zhao Min raised her eyebrows, but before she could say anything, the Xianming elders bluntly said, I say, do you have any sense of shame? If it weren't for our princess's help, you would have been locked up here until the end of time. Now that you've been saved, not only did you not thank the princess, but you also want a foot after taking an inch. I really don't know how you've been in Jianghu these past few years. Xianming elders, what are you saying? Zhang Songshi didn't have the self-restraint of his eldest senior brother, so he couldn't help but become angry when he heard this. Glancing at the long sword in his hand, the Xianming elders chuckled. What, you want to fight? We brothers will accompany you to the end. Enough. Zhao Min glared at the two of them, and the Xianming elders immediately retreated to the side like withered quails. She then looked at Song Yuan Xiao and the others. I'm already giving face to that person by letting you go. If you want me to let these Song dynasty princesses go, that person will have to come and beg me personally. Maybe if I'm in a good mood, I'll consider it. The yellow-robed woman on the tree couldn't help but curl her lips. She stretched out her finger and poked Song Qingshu, who was beside her. Hey, I'm thinking of you. Why aren't you going down? Song Qingshu shook his head. No, Wan Yinliang's subordinates haven't arrived yet, so it's not the right time to go out. Oh, that's right. Have you made arrangements for the experts you brought? With the help of Empress Payman's token, I've arranged for them to stay there. As soon as they receive my signal, they'll rush over in the shortest amount of time possible. The yellow-robed woman pointed to a nearby side hall. I hope their martial arts aren't too weak. Song Qingshu smiled. Compared to you, of course they're a bit weak, but they're all experts that our Jianshan Academy has carefully trained. They're more than enough to deal with other people. The yellow-robed woman always felt that Song Qingshu's style of speaking was very special and strange, but sometimes the words he used were very vivid. She couldn't help but imitate him. In any case, they're just assistants. Song Qingshu smiled without thinking too much about it. Suddenly, his expression became serious. They're here. Ha! I was wondering why the Huani courtyard was so lively today. It turns out that the princess has graced us with her presence. A burst of laughter rang out, causing everyone in the courtyard to tremble. What a deep internal energy. Seeing Ouyang Feng and the others appear at the door, Zhao Min's mind immediately became clear. No wonder Wan Yinping and the other two had been transferred away. So Wan Yinliang and I had the same goal. In such a short period of time, she had already guessed most of the things that had happened. Chapter 860. However, there was no point in thinking about it now. Zhao Min quickly composed herself and said with a smile, I was wondering who it was. So it's Mr. Ouyang. It's been several months since we last met, but Mr. Ouyang is still as elegant as ever. Old bones like us are already half buried in the ground. Every day we live is one day less. How can we compare to the princess who is in her prime? Ouyang Feng brought a group of people with him, and by the time he finished speaking, his subordinates had already surrounded Zhao Min's people. Ouyang Feng looked around and couldn't help but laugh. Why isn't Song Qingshu by your side this time? Zhao Min's flower-like smile immediately froze. He's not anyone to me. Why is he by my side? The yellow-robed woman poked Song Qingshu again and teased. Why does it seem like everyone knows about you in Zhao Min? Song Qingshu replied with a serious face. I can't help it. I'm always so dazzling wherever I go. You're so full of yourself. The yellow-robed woman rolled her eyes at him. Song Qingshu smiled and began to observe the people Ouyang Feng brought with him. He immediately ignored those who were dressed in uniforms. There were only 3 people worth paying attention to. Aside from Ouyang Feng, Murong Bo was also an old acquaintance. The other person was not Qiu Qianren, but the Heartless Valley's master, Gongsun Ji. Qiu Qianren was injured by him last time in Kaifeng, and it would be difficult for him to recover in a few months. Right now, he must be hiding somewhere to recuperate. As for Gongsun Ji, he didn't know how Wan Yin Liang managed to rope him in after the Golden Snake Gathering. At this time, Ouyang Feng laughed. If Song Yu was by your side, I might have a chat with the princess. But since he's not here, the princess must be our guest. Zhao Min's expression changed slightly. In order to hide her tracks, she did not bring many people into the Jin Kingdom. Only Xianming and Xianming elders could be considered experts. If Ouyang Feng was alone, Xianming and Xianming elders would not be afraid. However, Ouyang Feng had 2 experts of the same level, which was a little troublesome. She couldn't help but feel regretful. She had been too careless with her actions. She had wanted to end the battle quickly and get rid of the laundry yard. Although it seemed risky, everything was within her control. Who would have thought that Wan Yinliang would attack the laundry yard today? The Xianming elders sensed the contempt in Ouyang Feng's words and were enraged. Ouyang Feng, we are protecting the princess. You can't act so arrogantly. Shameless boasting. Ouyang Feng sneered, then turned to Murong Bo and said, Mr. Murong, how about we finish this quickly? In reality, with his cultivation, he could easily defeat the Xianming elders. However, the Xianming elders were also top experts. It would be difficult to determine a winner without at least 100 moves. Also, the guards of the Jin Kingdom's palace could react at any time. He did not want to take this risk. Murong Bo had been in the Hailing King's palace for a long time, so he had heard about how Wan Yinliang had been defeated by Zhao Min at the inn. If it wasn't for Song Qingshu suddenly appearing, he feared he would have been captured by the Mongolians. This matter had always been a great humiliation to Wan Yinliang. Now that Zhao Min only had the two Xianming elders by her side, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As long as he could capture Zhao Min, one Yinliang would definitely give him a satisfactory reward. Brother Ouyang, why don't we have a competition to see who can defeat our enemies first? Morongbo smiled lightly. He did not care about the Xianming elders at all. Very well, then I choose Lu Zhangke. Ouyang Feng let out a long laugh, and with a flash, he attacked Lu Zhangke. He thought highly of himself, so he chose the martial brother of the Xianming elders who was slightly stronger. Even so, he was sure he could defeat his opponent before Morongbo. The Xianming elders were shocked. They did not expect that they would attack so quickly. They quickly waved their weapons to fight back. They had been famous in Jianghu for many years. Usually, they could stand alone in Jianghu with only the Xianming divine palm. Few people could make them use their unique weapons. But Western poison Ouyang Feng was famous, so they did not dare to be careless. Seeing his martial brother being attacked, He Biwing subconsciously wanted to help. Unfortunately, Morongbo also attacked in front of him, so he had to brace himself to deal with the crisis. The reason why the Xianming elders could be the top experts in Jianghu and could beat Zhang Wuji, who had mastered the Nine-Yang divine power and the heaven and earth great shift, was not only because Zhang Wuji did not have enough experience in fighting, but also because they had a special joint attack technique that could bring out the effect of 1 + 1 was far greater than 2. Therefore, in the face of Ouyang Feng and Morongbo's attacks, the Xianming elders subconsciously moved closer, hoping to use the joint attack formation to deal with the strong enemy. But Ouyang Feng and Morongbo were the top figures in Jianghu. Whether it was in terms of cultivation or actual combat, they could be said to be very experienced. They could see through the two's plan at a glance. Therefore, they very tacitly blocked the two, making them unable to form the formation and fall into a quagmire of fighting separately. As a result, the Xianming elders quickly fell into a disadvantageous position. Zhao Min's delicate eyebrows were tightly knitted as she watched. She became anxious. On the side, Gong Sunji greedily stared at her face, praising her in his heart. I didn't think that there would be such a beautiful woman in this world besides the Dragon Lady. Although she is not as elegant and refined as the Dragon Lady, she is even more charming. She really is the best of all women. Seeing that the experts around Zhao Min were being held back by Ouyang Feng and the others, Gong Sunji had an idea. Ever since I joined the Hailing Palace, I haven't made any contributions. Why don't I take this opportunity to capture Zhao Min? Wouldn't one Yinliang look at me in a different light? Although he was very greedy for Zhao Min's beauty, he knew his own limits. He knew that with Zhao Min's status, she was not someone he could touch. Moreover, Wan Yinliang had always been thinking about this Princess Zhao Min. Now that he was under Wan Yinliang's command, how could he dare to steal food from the tiger's mouth? However, even if he couldn't actually get intimate with her, he could still take advantage of the moment. He captured Zhao Min to feel her body all over. Gong Sunji's heart skipped a beat, and he couldn't hold back any longer. His entire body was like a rock spreading its wings as he pounced toward Zhao Min. The guard around Zhao Min hurriedly rushed forward to stop him, but they were no match for Gong Sunji. With a wave of his hands, a serrated golden blade appeared in one hand, and a black sword appeared in the other. In an instant, none of the black-clothed men were a match for him. Zhao Min was secretly angry. Wan Yinyang even boasted that these were the warriors that he had trained meticulously, but in the end, they couldn't even withstand a single blow. Seeing that the enemy was getting closer and closer, Zhao Min knew that today's defeat was inevitable. She decisively ordered a retreat and, at the same time, arranged for a group of warriors to block the retreat. Where do you think you're going? There was no way Gong Sunji would let a cooked duck fly away. He swung the golden saber in his hand up into the sky, and using the magnetic force of the black sword, he swung the saber around like a flaming wheel. The men in black surrounding him fell down one by one like they were chopped chives. Chapter 861. Song Qingshu's expression changed. Just as he was about to help, he saw what happened next, and stopped with a strange expression on his face. Just as Gong Sun Ji was about to grab Zhao Min, a long sword came from the side. Although it was not a tricky angle, it was impossible for him to dodge. Gong Sun Ji had to give up on grabbing Zhao Min and quickly pulled back his sword to protect himself. When Gong Sun Ji steadied himself and saw the attacker, he was furious. The Passionless Valley and Wudong have always minded our own business. Why is Master Song interfering with my business? The attacker was Song Yuanxiao. The Passionless Valley and Wudong Mountain were both near Xiangyang City. Although they did not have much contact, Gong Sun Ji could still recognize the attacker. The yellow-robed woman on the tree said in a strange tone, "Oh, father-in-law saved your future daughter-in-law." Song Qingshu's face was gloomy. "Don't talk nonsense. He doesn't know about my relationship with Zhao Min." "Pooh. There's no relationship between Zhao Min and me." Seeing that he was making things worse, the yellow-robed woman smiled. "It doesn't matter if you have a relationship with that princess or not. This show is getting more and more interesting." After saying that, he leaned on the branch in an extremely comfortable posture, as if he was purely watching the show. Song Qingshu wanted to say something, but Song Yuanxiao's calm voice came from below. "Valley Master Gong Sun, we just received Miss Zhao's kindness. We can't just sit back and watch her fall into danger. It's against the rules of chivalry." Gong Sun Ji sneered. "I'm only being polite to you because of Zhang Sanfeng. Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Song Yuanxiao frowned. He actually did not want to get involved in the war between the Jin Kingdom and the Mongols. It was just that he did not want to see Zhao Min fall into Gong Sun Ji's hands since she had the upper hand. "Elder brother, don't forget our goal this time." Zhang Songshi walked up and pointed at the group of song princesses who were being controlled. In Lighting also advised, "Our power is limited. Miss Zhao may be related to Wudong, but she is still Mongolian. Are we going to give up saving those song princesses for a Mongolian?" Hearing their conversation, Zhao Min said coldly, "You Wudong people don't need to pretend. You don't need to worry about my safety." Unfortunately, as soon as she finished, the Xianming elders groaned and retreated to her side with pale faces. It was obvious that they were badly injured. Murong Bo burst into laughter. "Mr. Ouyang's divine skill is matchless, indeed worthy of being the person who once seized the world's #1. His goal was to revive the Yin Kingdom, so reputation in the martial arts world was not that important to him. He was more willing to build a good relationship with a top kung fu master like Ouyang Feng." Moreover, Ouyang Feng had indeed defeated Lu Zhangke one step ahead of him, so his compliments were not false. Ouyang Feng also said with a smile, "Mr. Murong's family has a long history of learning. Your Big Dipper transposition has reached perfection. This old man is also very impressed." Hearing the two of them flatter each other, Gong Sun Ji inwardly curled his lips. However, these two people's martial arts were indeed above his own, so he didn't dare reveal any of his thoughts. He could only vent his frustrations on Song Yuanxiao and the others. At this time, you don't need to worry about whether or not you should save Zhao Min. Come with her to our estate as a guest." Hearing the threat in his tone, Song Yuanxiao and the other two, all his countenance abruptly changed. But before he could say anything, he heard Murong Bo also laughed. "I didn't expect that the three of you would actually be able to come out from the washing clothes courtyard. Very well, let this old man catch you one more time." Xiao Qianren and Gong Sunji's characters were worse. They were more greedy for glory and wealth, which Murong Bo and Ouyang Feng despised. As for Murong Bo himself, his main goal was to revive the Yin Kingdom, so he didn't hesitate to serve the Prince of Hailing. This time, he used Song Yuanxiao and the others to provoke the war between Shaolin and Wudong, which then led to the war between the Jin and Song kingdoms. Wanyan Liang was the most active supporter of the war against the Song kingdom and the Jin kingdom, so the two of them could be said to have hit it off. Originally, he wanted to secretly execute Song Yuanxiao and the others, but for some unknown reason, the higher-ups of the Jin kingdom wanted to capture them alive. In the end, Song Yuanxiao and the others were locked up in the laundry yard, and Murong Bo never heard from them again. Now that he saw them safe and sound, Murong Bo naturally didn't want to sit and watch them return to Wudong, so that his long-term plan would fail. Because they were ambushed and Murong Bo was wearing a mask, Song Yuanxiao and the other two didn't recognize him first. Now that they heard his words, they couldn't help but be shocked and angry. "So the one who ambushed us was you?" Ian Lighting couldn't hold back anymore. "Despicable person, you sneak-attacked us. We should settle this debt." After saying that, he pulled out his sword and stabbed Murong Bo. Song Yuanxiao and Zhang Songshi knew that Murong Bo's martial arts were unfathomable, so they were worried that Ian Lighting would be at a disadvantage. So they hurriedly went to protect him. "Hey, your father's fighting with him. Why don't you go down and help?" The yellow-robed woman couldn't help but say. Song Qing-shu shook his head. "Last time I asked them about the situation when they were captured, the other side ambushed them one by one. Facing them head-on, when the three of them joined hands, they were not any weaker than Murong Bo." For Song Qing-shu, the martial arts of the 7 heroes of Wudong in the original work was really a mystery. All kinds of narration stated that they were the top experts of the martial arts world. But in the whole book, there were a lot of scenes where the 7 heroes of Wudong suffered losses. Even Yu Lianzhou, who had the highest martial arts among the 7 heroes, was beaten to a sorry state by Zhou Zhuo. If it wasn't for Zhou Zhuo seeing Zhang Wuji's hesitation, and if it was a real life and death battle, Yu Lianzhou would have already died under her strange attack at the beginning, and wouldn't have the opportunity to gradually turn the situation around through a protracted battle. In the end, Song Qing-shu also slowly figured out the way. In the original work, the 7 heroes of Wudong couldn't compare to those famous top experts. But to the other experts of the martial arts world, they were still existences that could only be looked up to. In the entire Heavenly Sword, the 7 heroes of Wudong, Yu Lianzhou and Song Yuanxiao, who had the highest martial arts, should be ranked in the top 10. If their martial arts weren't high, they could be ranked in the top 10 in the entire martial arts world. If their martial arts were high, then it would be a bit embarrassing if their opponents were all top 10 experts. However, there was someone even more tragic than them. In Young Zhang Sanfeng, He Jifeng's martial arts could be ranked 4th in the world, but he was always beaten up by the top 3 in the world. That was really depressing. Song Qing at this time, Song Yuanxiao and the other two were already fighting with Murong Bo in full swing. For some reason, Ouyang Feng didn't make a move to help, and Gong Sunji looked like he was watching a show. The reason why Song Qing-shu was able to observe everything so calmly was mainly because he wasn't the real Song Qing-shu, but a soul that had transmigrated from the future. In addition, as soon as he transmigrated, his meridians were all destroyed by the Wudong sect, causing him to have a hellish difficulty of transmigrating. Therefore, it was very hard for him to say that he had any father-son feelings for Song Yuanxiao. It was more of a moral obligation. With Song Qing-shu's current cultivation, he could naturally judge the real situation of the battle. After all, they were the direct disciples of Zhang Sanfeng, who was an earth immortal. Their cultivation was not to be underestimated. In addition, with the addition of the formation between them, they were not at a disadvantage when fighting against the top expert Murong Bo. It could even be said that the combined cultivation of the 3 of them was higher than Murong Bo's. Unfortunately, martial arts was not as simple as addition and subtraction. Even if the 3 of them had the same thoughts, they were still far from being able to move freely as one person. In addition, Murong Bo's star's transposition was the best at borrowing strength to fight strength. Not only was he not at a disadvantage, he even had a lot of advantages. If they were to continue fighting, within 50 moves, Song Yuanxiao and the other 2 would have the upper hand. After 50 moves, it would be a tie. After 100 moves, Murong Bo would definitely win. With the 3 heroes of Wudang being entangled by Murong Bo, Gong Sunji no longer had any apprehensions. He chuckled as he approached Zhao Min currently. Zhao Min only had the seriously injured Xianming elders by her side. Ouyang Feng had a high status, so of course, he would not join hands with Gong Sunji. Seeing that Gong Sunji was getting closer and closer, the Xianming elders used their remaining strength to attack. Unfortunately, the 2 of them had been seriously injured by Ouyang Feng and Murong Bo. so they were no match for Gong Sunji. After a few moves, they were forced into a dangerous situation. If it were not for their decades of cultivation and eyesight, they might have already fallen under Gong Sunji's golden saber and black sword. Ouyang Feng suddenly opened his mouth and said, "Miss Zhao, what is the relationship between you and Song Qingshu?" Hearing his words, the three heroes of Wu Dang, who were fighting bitterly on the side, couldn't help but look at each other. Wasn't Zhao meant a couple with Wuji? How did she get involved with that kid Qingshu? What does it have to do with you? Zhaomin rolled her eyes at him in annoyance. Ouyang Feng smiled and said, "This old man and that kid Song Qingshu hit it off very well. We can be considered friends despite the difference in age. If you really are his woman, I can't let my sister-in-law be bullied by other men. Although I can't let you go this time, I can guarantee that no one will be able to bully you, not even the Hailing King. Similarly, great hero Song, you don't need to worry about your own safety. For the sake of Song Qingshu, this old man will spare your life. However, Hero Zhangxi and Heroine Lu won't be so lucky." Murong Bo's expression changed. Then he laughed and said, "Since Mr. Ouyang has said so, I won't not give you face. In a moment, I will show mercy to great hero Song." Although he was a bit unhappy, he didn't want to offend an expert like Ouyang Feng for such a small matter. On the other side, Gong Sun Ji wasn't so shrewd. Seeing the cooked duck fly away, he couldn't help but be shocked and angry. "Mr. Ouyang, what is the meaning of this?" Ouyang Feng smiled faintly. "Valley Master Gong Sun, there is no need to worry. Miss Zhao still hasn't answered my question." Chapter 862. Song Qingshu, who was hiding in the tree, had a strange look on his face. If he hadn't been sure that Ouyang Feng wouldn't have noticed him, he would have thought that Ouyang Feng was doing him a favor on purpose. Thinking about how Ouyang Feng had brought Huang Rong to his mouth, Song Qingshu couldn't help but sigh. Perhaps to others, this old poison was the Western poison that made people pale at the mention of his name, but to him, he was a big lucky star. First, he brought Huang Rong to him, and now he pushed Zhao Min into his arms. Song Qingshu wanted to kiss him to show his gratitude. "Miss Zhao, why aren't you talking?" Ouyang Feng looked at Zhao Min mockingly. "I have nothing to do with Song Qingshu. You don't have to worry about anything." Zhao Min's face turned green and then red. Even if she did have something to do with Song Qingshu, how could she admit it in front of so many people? "Huh." Hearing her answer, Gong Sun Ji was the happiest. "Mr. Ouyang, you heard her answer, right? It's not that I didn't give you face." Ouyang Feng snorted. His face was dark, and he stood there without saying anything. Gong Sun Ji ignored him. Even though he was afraid of the Western poison, his golden saber and black sword were not to be trifled with. Even if his martial arts were slightly weaker than Ouyang Feng's, the difference wouldn't be too big. If they really fought, he wouldn't be afraid. Plus, they were on the same side now. He didn't believe that Ouyang Feng would turn against him for an outsider. "Hee, princess, you're quite pretty, aren't you? Be a good girl and give yourself up, and I won't do anything to you. If you don't appreciate my kindness, don't blame me for destroying you." Gong Sun Ji rubbed his hands as he approached Zhao Min, drooling. The Xianming elders' faces changed. They quickly whispered, "Princess, we'll try our best to stall him for a few seconds. You should take advantage of the chaos and escape." The two of them were not the kind of people who were loyal to their master, but the Mongolians had always been fair in their rewards and punishments. If they ran away and betrayed their master, the Mongolians would pursue the matter, and they would be in a state where they could neither live nor die. It was better to give it their all, and if they were lucky enough to escape with their lives, they would be rewarded handsomely when they returned to Mongolia. Zhao Min shook her head and stood there without a trace of fear. "I'm not leaving. Don't worry, he can't hurt me." "Oh." Gong Sun Ji was surprised to hear her words. Could it be that Her Highness is also a martial arts master? Zhao Min smiled faintly. "Although I know martial arts, compared to the Heartless Valley Master, this little girl's martial arts can't be compared to his." Seeing her smile like a flower, Gong Sun Ji was immediately captivated. He wanted to talk to her for a while longer and listen to her soft voice, so he was not in a hurry to attack. Instead, he asked with interest, "Then why is the princess so sure that I can't hurt you?" The corners of Zhao Min's lips curled up slightly. "Because there is someone who will not let you hurt me." Gong Sunji's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly turned around to look at Ouyang Feng. He saw that Ouyang Feng's eyes were half closed and did not show any interest in this matter. Gong Sunji could not help but relax. The princess is counting on Mr. Ouyang now. Isn't it too late? Zhao Min shook her head. "I wasn't talking about him." "Then who are you talking about?" Gong Sunji looked around cautiously, and when he saw that the whole scene was under their control, he was even more relieved. Did the princess bring some other martial arts masters? Gong Sunji had also heard about how Wanyan Liang had been defeated by her. If Priest Bai Su, the headmaster of the Jin Gang School, or Jinlun Fuang were hiding in the dark and attacking him, he would be in danger. Zhao Min pursed her lips and did not reply. Gong Sunji was secretly on guard. He waited for a while, but nothing unusual happened. Thinking that he had been famous for a long time, yet he was scared by a little girl's casual words, he could not help but feel angry. "Humph, I want to see who will come to your rescue at this time." Gong Sunji grinned and reached out to grab her. However, he was cautious by nature and was always on guard against any sneak attacks, so his speed was not very fast. Seeing that Gong Sunji's hand was getting closer and closer, Zhao Min took a deep breath. Her chest rose and fell slightly. Then her red lips parted slightly, and her clear voice rang out. "Song Qing Shu, you heartless bastard. Are you just going to watch me get bullied by this pervert?" Song Qing Shu, who was watching the show from the top of the tree, almost fell down. He thought that with his and the yellow-robed girl's martial arts, even Ouyang Feng would not be able to find them if they hid so far up in the tree. How could Zhao Min possibly find him? As soon as Min's words came out, the whole scene fell into a strange silence. Ouyang Feng's eyes shone brightly as he quickly looked around, trying to find any traces of Song Qing Shu. Even Morong Bo and Song Yuan Xiao, who were fighting, stopped fighting. Morong Bo had fought with Song Qing Shu before and was somewhat afraid of his martial arts. Song Yuan Xiao and the other two were shocked. Wasn't Zhao Min a couple with Zhang Wuji? How did she end up with Song Qing Shu? Gong Sun Ji was also stunned. His golden saber and black sword were destroyed by Song Qing Shu during the Golden Snake Gathering. The two sabers in his hands were reforged later, so they were not as sharp and smooth as the previous two. He had been eliminated by Yang Wu long ago, so he did not have the mood to stay and watch the rest of the competition. However, he had heard a little about what happened afterward. He knew that Song Qing Shu had defeated all kinds of powerful martial artists and obtained the throne of the Golden Snake King. Song Qing Shu's martial arts were probably better than his. Song Qing Shu? I was just about to find him for destroying my saber. Gong Sunji was still so confident because he had been defeated by Yanghua because he had been careless. He did not expect that Yanghua's black iron sword was such a powerful weapon. Gong Sunji knew that in terms of cultivation and experience, he was superior to Yanghua. If he relied on his own abilities, he was confident that he could compete with all the powerful martial artists. Thus, although he was a little afraid of Song Qing Shu, he was not afraid of him. After Gong Sunji finished speaking, he did not see any trace of Song Qing Shu. He could not help but laugh. "Princess, it seems that the man you were counting on is just a coward. Why don't you join me?" "Valley Master?" Zhao Min laughed disdainfully. "You are just a dog of Wanyan Liang. How dare you try to take advantage of me?" Although he had joined Wanyan Liang's side, Gong Sunji was still a great master. Being called a dog by his name, he could not take it lying down. "Little bitch, I gave you face, but you don't want it." As he spoke, he raised his hand to slap her face. The Xinming elders were shocked and hurried forward to stop him. However, they were seriously injured and could not fight. They were easily knocked away by Gong Sunji. "Get out of my way." Seeing that Gong Sunji's palm was getting closer and closer, Zhao Min simply closed her eyes. Even though her face was calm, her slightly trembling eyelashes revealed her nervousness. In a chapter. Chapter 863. The pain she expected didn't come. Instead, Zhao Min felt her entire body fall into a warm embrace. Then, she heard a familiar voice. "Are you so sure that I'll save you?" Zhao Min's lips curled up slightly. She slowly opened her eyes and looked up at the man hugging her. She giggled. "Could it be that you're willing to let me be bullied by others?" The yellow-robed woman, who was still on the tree, couldn't help but spit in her mind. In broad daylight, they're really an adulterous couple. Eldest senior brother, what's going on? Seeing Zhao Min bashfully lying in Song Qingshu's embrace, the Wudong three heroes' eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Zhang Song she couldn't help but pull on Song Yuanqiao's sleeve. That's right, isn't Miss Zhao and Wuji? Among the elders, Yin Lighting had the best relationship with Zhang Wuji. Firstly, his wife, Yang Buhui, and Zhang Wuji were like siblings. Secondly, when his limbs were broken by the Herculean diamond finger, it was also Zhang Wuji who healed him. Thus, seeing Zhao Min lying in another man's embrace, Yin Lighting was completely flabbergasted. Song Yuanqiao also had a bitter smile on his face. Don't ask me, I'm also confused. When he heard what Ouyang Feng said before, he didn't think much of it. After all, in his opinion, Zhao Min and his son were completely unrelated. Thus, when he saw this scene, he was even more shocked than his two juniors. Murong Bo's pupils shrank slightly. Song Qingshu was currently half-hugging Zhao Min with a calm expression on his face. Gong Sunji's face was completely red. It was obvious that he had used all his strength, but he still couldn't break free from Song Qingshu's grasp. Ouyang Feng also laughed out loud. Brother Song, how long has it been since we last met? Your martial arts have improved so much again. You've been hiding nearby for so long, but I didn't even notice you. You flatter me, Brother Ouyang. I heard everything you said to Miss Zhao. I will remember this favor, replied Song Qingshu with a smile. He didn't look at Gong Sunji at all. Don't. Ouyang Feng hurriedly waved his hand and said, I haven't done this favor yet. Miss Zhao doesn't care about it all. She's waiting for you to personally act as a hero and save the beauty. Song Qingshu couldn't help but glance at Zhao Min. She was still as beautiful as ever. How did you know I was nearby? Zhao Min was about to answer when she suddenly heard Gong Sunji snort. She glanced at him and found his face disgusting. She couldn't help but snort. I'll tell you after you get rid of this bastard. All right. Song Qingshu smiled slightly. Since he wanted to hit you, I'll hit him back for you. I'll help you vent your anger. Then he waved his hand and slapped Gong Sunji's face. Because he was holding Zhao Min with one hand, if he wanted to slap Gong Sunji, he would have to let go of her hand. Gong Sunji heard their conversation clearly. As a master, if he were to be slapped in front of everyone, how would he be able to live in the future? Therefore, as soon as his hands were free, he immediately went into a defensive position, thinking that he could block all of Gong Sunji's subsequent moves. Who knew that, with a slap, he would feel a burning pain on the left side of his face. He was stunned. He bullied you so much just now. It's too easy for him to just slap the left side of his face. Song Qingshu's calm voice came into his ears again. Gong Sunji was scared out of his wits. He hurriedly used all of his skills to protect the right side of his face. However, Song Qingshu's hand seemed to be invisible. It easily pierced through his defense. Piercing through the blockade formed by Gong Sunji's hands, another loud slap was heard. A huge force came from the right side of Gong Sunji's face. Gong Sunji's whole body was like a heavy sandbag, drawing a parabola in the air and falling heavily on the floor dozens of feet away. Gong Sunji fainted while he was still in midair. Half of the reason was because the other party was too strong, but the main reason was because of the humiliation. He was the ruler of a region, but he was toyed with by the other party in front of everyone. Thinking about how he would never be able to face anyone again, he was so furious that he fainted before he could even catch his breath. Ouyang Feng and Murong Bo were both shocked. Although they could beat Gong Sunji, it wouldn't be as easy as this. Not to mention telling the opponent in advance which side of his face to slap, and then breaking through the opponent's tight defense to win. It should be known that a master of Gong Sunji's level might not be able to be flawless, But if he was determined to protect a certain part of his body, then his defense would be impenetrable. But in the end, Song Qingshu's hand easily broke through that defense. Even Murong Bo wasn't able to clearly see what was going on with those two slaps a moment ago. But Ouyang Feng seemed to have understood something. He felt that although Song Qingshu's move looked simple and easy, it actually contained the truth of the world. For a split second, Ouyang Feng was somewhat disheartened. When the two of them first met on the Divine Dragon Island, although this kid Song Qingshu's martial arts skill was high, it was still obviously inferior to mine. But in the end, every time they met, Song Qingshu's martial arts skill simply advanced by leaps and bounds. Perhaps now, he was already above me. Alas, I've spent so much effort to pursue the title of #1 under the heavens, but in the end, it was just an illusion. If Ouyang Feng was just a little dispirited, then Murong Bo was in deep fear. The reason why he dared to kidnap Song Qingshu and the others was because he had fought with Song Qingshu in the Sea of Flowers near Ping Yiji's residence. At that time, their martial arts were about the same. In order to revive the Yin Kingdom, he was obviously not afraid of offending him. But how did Song Qingshu's martial arts improve so quickly in such a short time? On the other side, the three heroes of Wudang were both surprised and happy. Zhang Songshi and Yin Lighting were fine. After all, they had seen Song Qingshu fight at the Golden Snake Gathering. Song Yuanqiao's memory of his son was still stuck at the time before the lion-slaying gathering. At that time, although his son's martial arts were considered decent among the younger generation, compared to the real masters of Jianghu, he was still not up to par. He didn't expect that after the lion-slaying gathering, he would actually grow to this stage. Although he still held a grudge against his son for killing Muo Xinggu, which father in this world wouldn't want his son to be capable? Song Qingshu didn't care about the crowd's reaction. After slapping Gong Sun Ji away, he turned his attention back to Zhao Min. Now can you tell me how you knew I was nearby? Noticing everyone's gaze, Zhao Min finally realized that she was still half-nestled in Song Qingshu's arms. Even though she was used to seeing storms, she still couldn't bear it. She hurriedly straightened her body and pushed Song Qingshu away at the same time. Only then did she clear her throat and blushed as she said, "I thought it was strange before. The masters that were captured by the laundry yard would all be fed a poison called Drunk Rouge, which would make their entire body weak. But just now, Master Song and the others didn't show any signs of being poisoned at all. This could only mean that someone had already detoxified the poison for the three of them. The laundry yard is located deep within the inner courtyard of the Jin Kingdom's palace. It is an extremely mysterious organization. Master Song and the others are imprisoned there. If even the Lord doesn't know about it, then the only person in this world who has the ability to detoxify the poison for them is you, his son." Song Qingshu looked surprised. "Your Highness, you are truly exceptional. With just a few clues, you were able to deduce so much. I really admire you. Zhao Min couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. "You talk so nicely, but deep down, you're not a good person. I've been bullied here for so long, but you didn't even come out to help me. Tell me honestly, if I didn't force you out, would you not have shown yourself?" Song Qingshu laughed awkwardly. "How could that be? My father and the others are also here. I just thought that you guys wouldn't be in any danger for the time being, so I'll take a look first." At the side, Zhang Song she couldn't help but nudge Song Yuan Xiao with his shoulder and jokingly said, "Eldest martial brother, it's said that a married daughter is like water that's been poured out. I think your son isn't that much different." Even when he saw that you were in danger, he was still able to keep his cool. But in the end, with just one word from Miss Zhao, he hurriedly came out to protect you. Hearing this, Song Yuanqiao's face darkened, and his gaze towards Song Qingshu suddenly became a bit unfriendly. Zhang Songshi's voice wasn't soft, and he didn't try to suppress it either, so Zhao Min heard it clearly. She couldn't help but blush. "Fourth Uncle Zhang, you 7 heroes of Wudang have an illustrious reputation in Jianghu. In a situation where you're fighting 3 against 1, if Qingshu were to come out and help you, wouldn't that be showing that he's looking down on you?" Zhang Songshi was immediately amused. Just now, who was it that kept calling us fourth hero Zhang, and even threatened us from time to time? And now you've changed to calling us uncle. Even if Zhao Min was a very brave person, she still couldn't handle his teasing. She couldn't help but blush and spit. Hey, no wonder your Wu Dang sect is full of bastards. It turns out that if the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. Zhang Songshi laughed out loud. It's rare to see Miss Zhao blush. This trip to the Jin Kingdom has been worth it. Zhao Min became anxious and was just about to retort when a cold voice suddenly came from the air. Now that we're surrounded by strong enemies and in the tiger's den, Prince Song still has the leisure to reminisce about the past. Have you forgotten the purpose of this trip? Everyone looked up and saw a woman wearing a light yellow robe slowly descending from the air. Her robe fluttered in the wind, and her fine black hair danced in the wind. She looked like an otherworldly fairy. Seeing her graceful bearing and extremely beautiful appearance, coupled with her beautiful qinggong, everyone present was stunned. For a moment, no one spoke. The yellow-robed woman walked over to Song Qingshu's side and quietly looked at him. Song Qingshu had a bitter smile on his face. Of course, I haven't forgotten. Noticing the expressions of the two as they talked, Zhao Min suddenly smiled sweetly. Sister, you can't be jealous, right? This bastard deserves to be killed by 1,000 knives. Only you treat him like a treasure. Why would I be jealous of him? The yellow-robed woman snorted coldly. However, everyone else present had a strange expression on their faces. If there really was nothing, why would she call him deserves to be killed by 1,000 knives? Her tone was obviously that of a lover throwing a tantrum. Looking at the two beautiful women on either side of Song Qingshu, one bright and moving, the other graceful and graceful, even Ouyang Feng, who usually didn't have any interest in women, felt a bit jealous. This stinky brat's luck with women is just too good. If my poor cur had 30% of his ability to pick up girls, that girl Huang Rong would have given me grandchildren long ago. End of this chapter. Chapter 864. Zhang Songshi pulled on Song Yuanxiao's sleeve and whispered, Isn't she the mysterious yellow-robed girl from the lion slaying gathering? Qing Shu and her. Hee, elder brother, your son is quite amazing. The yellow-robed girl's appearance at the lion-slaying gathering left a deep impression on many people. No wonder even a middle-aged man like Zhang Songshi couldn't help but start gossiping. They might not be in that kind of relationship. Song Yuanxiao's tone was a little uncertain, but he was actually very happy. A few years ago, he saw his son fall in love with Zhou Zhiruo and Zhou Zhiruo fall in love with Zhang Wuji. He was worried that his son was destined to be single for the rest of his life. Who would have thought that in just a few years, his son would not only marry Zhou Zhiruo, but also have romantic relationships with so many women in the martial arts world? Should I remind him to be more single-minded? Song Yuanxiao was a righteous person. Seeing his son being involved with so many women, he subconsciously felt a little unhappy. But then he thought about it and realized that marrying a few more women was not a bad thing. Thinking back to how Zhang Sanfeng always taught him to let nature take its course, he gave up on the idea of persuading his son. Noticing the strange expressions on everyone's faces, the yellow-robed woman quickly realized that her words were ambiguous. When she remembered that Song Qingshu's father was still here, her somewhat pale cheeks immediately flushed with a beautiful blush. You guys take your time to catch up. I'll save them first. The yellow-robed girl knew that the more she explained, the more complicated things would become. She might as well take drastic measures and leave this place first. Sister, these Song Dynasty princesses are still in my hands. Aren't you going to ask for my opinion first? Zhao Min's eyes flashed. She took a step forward and stood in front of Zhao Min. The yellow-robed woman coldly snorted and immediately released a secret signal. Soon, her subordinates, who had been lying in ambush, also rushed out and surrounded Zhao Min's defeated subordinates. More than half of your subordinates are dead or injured, and the Xianming elders are also seriously injured. With your current strength, you can't stop me at all. Zhao Min smiled sweetly and hugged Song Qingshu's arm, pressing half of her body against him. But I still have Brother Qingshu. Noticing her actions, the yellow-robed woman's eyebrows twitched. She cursed in her heart. Mongolian women really don't know shame. In broad daylight, they're actually being affectionate with a man. Princess, don't be delusional. Prince Song is my ally. Why would he help you? The yellow-robed woman's voice was incomparably cold. That's not necessarily true. You're just allies, but we're. Zhao Min purposely wanted to say something, but stopped on second thought. With a shy expression, she asked, Brother Qingshu, are you going to help me or her? Song Qingshu had a big headache. He had no choice but to say, no matter who you help, can you get these women out of the Imperial Palace first? Although the defense forces in the Imperial Palace have been mobilized, so much time has passed. The Jin Kingdom should have realized it. Maybe they will send an army here soon. At that time, no one will be able to leave. Zhao Min smiled sweetly. Since Brother Qingshu has said so, I'm not a woman who doesn't know the big picture. How about this? As long as Brother Qingshu asks me personally, I will hand over the Song Dynasty princesses to this beautiful sister. How do you want me to beg you? Song Qingshu was incomparably gloomy. What time was it? She was still so unhurried. However, seeing Zhao Minxin's rose-like appearance, he couldn't get angry. It's very simple. Just promise me one condition. Zhao Min raised her neck and looked at him with her big eyes blinking. Song Qingshu asked with a headache, Is it the condition that you haven't thought about and will tell me later? Zhao Min's eyes turned into a crescent moon. Brother Qingshu is really smart. The yellow-robed woman frowned. Prince Song, there is no need to agree to her unreasonable request. Her subordinates can't stop me. Zhao Min let go of Song Qingshu and slowly looked around the yellow-robed woman. The yellow-robed woman felt uncomfortable and couldn't help asking, What are you looking at? Sister, don't worry. I won't make any conditions that will make Brother Qingshu embarrassed. For example, I won't allow Brother Qingshu to marry you. Zhao Min saw the yellow-robed woman frown and quickly added, Of course I won't make such a request. Seeing that the yellow-robed woman was so angry that her body trembled, Song Qingshu hurriedly said, Okay, I promise you. Quickly let them go. Hearing Song Qingshu agree, Zhao Min immediately beamed with joy. She pointed at her subordinates and said, You, and you, all go back to where you belong. There's no need to follow me anymore. The Xianming elders immediately looked bitter. Princess, how can there be no one to protect you? I'm counting on you too to protect me. This princess, have died countless times. Zhao Min curled her lips and tugged at Song Qingshu's sleeve. She answered as if it was a matter of course. Now, I have Brother Qingshu to protect me. Isn't that enough? The Xianming elders looked gloomy, but they had no way to refute. After glancing at each other, they had no choice but to dejectedly leave with their subordinates. For some unknown reason, Ouyang Feng's group didn't stop them and let them leave. The yellow-robed woman took advantage of this time to protect those princesses of the Song dynasty. When they found out about the yellow-robed woman's identity and that they had a chance to escape from the devil's den, they cried tears of joy. Song Qingshu glanced at them, then turned his attention to Murong Bo. Elder Murong, if it weren't for your son, it would have been very difficult for me to heal my broken meridians. I shouldn't have come to trouble you. However, I've already repaid the favor I owed your son. This time, you attacked my father and several martial uncles, so we should properly settle the score. Unlike Song Qingshu, Murong Bo was a top-notch character who had been famous in Jianghu for decades. Being reprimanded by a junior like this, even if he was afraid of the opposite party's martial arts, he didn't want to reveal the slightest bit of cowardice in front of everyone. This matter was done by this old man. What can you do to me? Song Qingshu coldly snorted. When the sound reached everyone's ears, they all felt their minds shake. Those with weaker martial arts felt annoyed and nauseous on the spot. Murong Bo's cultivation was far higher than those of his subordinates, but he still felt somewhat shaken. He had roamed Jianghu for many years and had rich experience in dealing with enemies. He knew that the opposite party had gained the upper hand by making a show of strength and would certainly take the opportunity to attack. So, he hastily took a step back. Sure enough, as he retreated, Song Qing-shu also took a step forward. Although it was only one step, the distance of several dozen zhang was covered in an instant. If it weren't for his foresight, perhaps he would have ended up in the same sorry state as Gong Sun Ji. However, Murong Bo didn't feel the slightest bit happy. Instead, he was greatly shocked. He didn't have the time to think about how the opposite party had completed this shrinking ground to inches technique. He hastily waved his palms in front of his body and used the Murong family's secret technique, Big Dipper, to the fullest. Big Dipper was the world's first-class martial art that borrowed strength to fight strength. Murong Bo's attainment in this technique was not something that Murong Fu could compare with. He was confident that even if he faced someone who was twice as strong as him, he would still be able to put up a fight. This Song Qing-shu was still very young, so no matter how high his martial arts was, how could it be more powerful than his decades of bitter cultivation? End of this chapter. Chapter 865. Murong Bo was full of confidence. The shifting stars was the treasure that the Murong family relied on to survive in the martial arts world. It was best at group battles and defeating the strong with the weak. If the enemy did not know the secret behind it, it would be very easy for them to be exhausted and die. Although the power that Song Qing-shu had displayed before was a little terrifying, Murong Bo was still full of confidence that he could obtain the final victory. However, he soon found himself unable to laugh. He discovered that no matter how he executed stellar transposition, he was unable to dissipate the force behind Song Qing-shu's attack. Song Qing-shu's attack was just a simple finger. However, this finger contained an extremely sharp and domineering sword qi. A few years ago, Murong Fu had suffered a loss under Duan Yu's six-pulse divine sword, so Murong Bo paid attention to it. Now, he finally understood why the shifting stars could remove the power of all the fists and palms in the world, but it was useless against the extremely sharp and invisible sword qi. During this delay, Song Qing-shu's finger was even closer to his body. Murong Bo had already lost the best chance to dodge. He was forced into a corner and could only bring out his trump card, Joined Finger. The Murong family was proficient in all the martial arts in the world, but the most profound ones were still the two martial arts. One was the shifting stars, and the other was the joined finger. After practicing it to the small success level, the power of the finger could attack from 70 to 80 feet away and kill people without a trace. In terms of the power of the finger, it was above the Shaolin Temple's formless finger of disaster, Emoku finger, Duluo leaf finger, and flower pinching finger. It combined the advantages of flower pinching finger, Duluo leaf finger, formless finger of disaster, and Maha finger. In theory, it was better than the Duan family's single yang finger. However, there was no advantage or disadvantage in finger techniques. The most important factor was the user's power, and Murong Bo's power was obviously high enough. The joined finger was his trump card, and he would never use it unless it was absolutely necessary. However, Song Qing-shu's fierce sword qi had already made him feel that his life was in danger. In this situation, he could not care so much. He activated the full power of the joined finger and pointed at Song Qing-shu's fingertip. When the two fingers collided, Song Qing-shu's body trembled, but Murong Bo let out a strange cry and hurriedly flew back several feet. His fingers were trembling in his sleeves, and his face was extremely ugly. At this moment, Song Qing-shu felt the blood in his body churn, and a faint tingling sensation came from his finger. But he believed that Murong Bo's situation must be even worse. So, he must be in a much worse situation. So he suppressed the pain in his finger and took another step toward Murong Bo. Murong Bo's pupil shrank, and right at this time, Ouyang Feng suddenly appeared between the two of them. He looked at Song Qing-shu and said, "Old brother Song." Mr. Murong offended Great Hero Song and the others before, but he was just following orders. "Old brother, why do you have to force him?" Although he did not want to participate in the battle between the two great experts, He and Murongbo were both from the hailing prince's mansion. If he allowed Murongbo to have an accident, it would be hard for him to explain to the other parties. Song Qingshu's face was as dark as water. Brother Ouyang, could it be that you want to fight with me? Ouyang Feng smiled embarrassedly. We can be said to have no discord, no concord. But this time there is no need. Right now, the Imperial Palace guards are rushing over here. That the Qing Kingdom is known as the #1 expert of the Jin Kingdom. If both of us are injured, won't that person reap the benefits? Seeing that Song Qingshu was silent, Ouyang Feng continued. From what you said just now, you have received great kindness from Prince Murong. Although you have already repaid the kindness, if Prince Murong's father is injured by your hands, he will inevitably feel guilty in the future. Song Qingshu's ears twitched when he heard the words benevolent government. Sure enough, there were many people rushing over from the direction of the main hall. They knew that the Imperial Palace guards of the Jin Kingdom had finally discovered the abnormality here. In addition to the unknown to Qing Kingdom, it would be unwise to stay and fight with Wanyan Liang's subordinates at this time. In that case, I will give you face this time. Song Qingshu paused and turned to look at Murongbo, but you can't do it more than 3 times. Mr. Murong, you're on your own. Murongbo coldly snorted. His lips moved, but in the end, he didn't refute. Song Qingshu then called the yellow-robed woman, Song Yuan Xiao, and the others to protect the Song Kingdom's princesses as they retreated along the predetermined route. Seeing that they had taken away their targets, the warriors of the Hailing Palace looked at Ouyang Feng for his opinion. Ouyang Feng only shook his head slightly. After Song Qingshu and the others left, he waved his hand and ordered the members of the laundry yard who had been poisoned by the 10 fragrant muscle-weakening powder to be killed. Only then did he retreat in another direction with his subordinates. In the blink of an eye, the bustling laundry yard became deathly silent. Many thanked for Mr. Ouyang's help. On the way back, Murongbo squeezed out a smile and thanked Ouyang Feng. Mr. Murong is too polite. How are your injuries? Ouyang Feng curiously asked. Murongbo's complexion slightly changed, but he quickly concealed it. I suffered a small injury. It's nothing serious. Thank you for your concern. It's good that it's nothing serious. Ouyang Feng thoughtfully looked at the bloodstain at Murongbo's feet. After returning to the Hailing Palace, Murongbo didn't even see Wanyan Liang. He directly returned to his room. After closing the door, he tremblingly stretched out his hand. His fingers were already badly mutilated. His index and middle fingers were missing in half. Song Qingshu, today's hatred for my broken fingers will be repaid tenfold in the future. Murongbo's face was ferocious as he gnashed his teeth and said, after Song Qingshu and his party left the Imperial Palace, a carriage was already waiting in a secret place. After the princesses were loaded onto the carriage, they ordered them to change their clothes. Then, the carriage majestically drove towards the city gate. Because they had the token given by Empress Pei Man, even though the city gate was already closed, they were still able to pass through the city gate without any mishap. Is your hand okay? Zhao Min and Song Qingshu sat together at the front of the first carriage. As soon as she was free, she hurriedly pulled Song Qingshu's hand and looked at it. Other than that, it's nothing serious, but it hurts a lot. Song Qingshu sucked in a breath of cold air. Zhao Min's beautiful face slightly changed. Could it be that your bones have suffered some kind of injury? How about we let them go first, and we go back to the city to find a doctor? That won't be necessary. Song Qingshu suddenly turned his head to look at Zhao Min. If Princess is willing to lower yourself and blow it for me, maybe my fingers won't hurt very soon. Seeing the smile on Song Qingshu's lips, Zhao Min realized that she had been teased by the other party. She unhappily threw his hand to the side. Pei, in your dreams. Song Qingshu's face was gloomy. Hey, you change your face too quickly. Just now in the Imperial Palace, you called Qingshu Gij so intimately. Zhao Min's face reddened, and she couldn't help but raise her chin. At that time, we were deep in the tiger's den. I was a weak woman and had no other choice but to use your tiger skin as a flag. You have the nerve to call yourself a weak woman? Song Qing-shu couldn't help but roll his eyes. But Jun, the Lord said that you're pulling my tiger's skin. Does that mean you're admitting that you're a fox? So what if I'm a fox? Foxes are smart. Zhao Min wrinkled her nose, but she didn't show any displeasure. Instead, she looked very proud. You are not just a smart fox. You are a beautiful fox spirit. Looking at Zhao Min's delicate face, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but sigh. Hey, a dog's mouth can't spit out ivory, Zhao Min scolded with a smile, but her eyes were full of smiles, and she didn't look angry at all. That's right. How is the investigation of the 3-corpse brain pill going? Song Qing-shu suddenly remembered the poison that Zhao Min had been poisoned with and hurriedly asked. You only know how to go sightseeing and flirt with other women. Why would you care about my life or death? Zhao Min looked at him bitterly. Don't misunderstand. There is nothing between me and Miss Yang. Song Qing-shu hurriedly said. Miss Yang? Is that woman surnamed Yang? Zhao Min muttered to herself and suddenly snorted. I didn't say who she was, so why did you have to confess to her? Song Qing-shu was speechless for a moment and secretly regretted it. It was not worth it to quarrel with a woman. Zhao Min knew her limits. Seeing that he didn't say anything, she didn't make a fuss out of nothing. Instead, she got down to business. After we parted ways, I returned to the Ruyang mansion and mobilized all the resources I had, but I couldn't find Murong Jingyue's whereabouts. It was only recently that I received news that he might be in Daxing Mansion, so I came to take a look. Zhao Min's words were half true and half false. Although she didn't hide the matter about Murong Jingyue, she was not only looking for Murong Jingyue, but she also shouldered the mission of stirring up chaos in the Jin Kingdom. She didn't tell Song Qing-shu about the latter. Murong Jingyue is in Daxing Mansion? Song Qing-shu had a strange expression. He had been living here as Tang Quobian for a while, but he didn't find anyone who could be Murong Jingyue in disguise. I'm not very sure, so I need to verify it, Zhao Min said with a frown. In the carriage behind, the yellow-clothed girl listened to her sisters recount the sufferings they had suffered over the years. Her eyes quickly turned red. Just as she was feeling sad, she suddenly saw Song Qing-shu and Zhao Min sitting at the front of the first carriage through the curtain. They were leaning against each other intimately and whispering to each other. Her mood immediately became very gloomy. Although she quickly realized that her mood was strange, she did not think much of it. She just thought that because she was a Song person, she naturally disliked Zhao Min, who was a Mongolian. Prince Song, now that we've left Daxing Mansion, you don't have to accompany us on the rest of the journey. The yellow-robed woman tiptoed and gracefully floated to the side of the two. We've just left Daxing Mansion. Let me accompany you for a while longer. This was what Song Qing-shu had discussed with her before. After all, he still had a lot of unfinished business in Daxing Mansion, so he couldn't keep escorting them back to the Southern Song dynasty. The yellow-robed woman looked hesitant. Although she subconsciously didn't want to say goodbye to Song Qing-shu so soon, seeing him and Zhao Min whispering sweet nothings to each other made her feel upset. In the end, she simply said, out of sight, out of mind. The heroes of Wudong are enough to escort us. While Song Qing-shu was hesitating, suddenly a woman's cold voice came from not far away. You have two beauties on your left and right. How enviable. End of chapter. Chapter 866. Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. Why did this voice sound so familiar? Zhao Min and the yellow-robed woman looked up at the same time. They saw a large group of people wearing white headscarves suddenly emerge from the bushes not far away and surrounded them. Song Qing-shu was slightly embarrassed. He was too careless. He only cared about talking to Zhao Min and did not even notice that they had entered the enemy's encirclement. Void hometown, Ajadi matriarch. Void hometown, Ajadi matriarch. Void hometown, Ajadi matriarch. After the group of people surrounded them, they all struck a strange pose and mumbled something. The buzzing sound made the group of women dizzy. What are they fiddling with? Song Qing-shu was confused. He could understand every single word, but when they were put together, he couldn't understand them at all. The yellow-robed woman's face turned ugly. They're from the White Lotus Society. The White Lotus Society believes in the Ajati matriarch. They believe that the Ajati matriarch is the lifeless ancient Buddha in heaven. She wants to purify the children of the mortal world and return to heaven to avoid calamity. This heaven is the Void Hometown. Void Hometown, Ajati matriarch, is the 8-syllable mantra that all believers believe in. You can understand it as similar to monks shouting Amitabha in the Western Paradise. The White Lotus Society? Song Qing-shu was instantly energized, and he looked at the White Lotus disciples in high spirits. One had to know that the White Lotus cult was the villain that appeared the most in the movies in his previous life. How could he not be excited now that he saw them alive? By the way, the novel said that the White Lotus Society has a saintess or something like that. What is the usual setting? I remember now. The saintess is unruly and willful, and the saintess is seductive. Is that true? Song Qing-shu couldn't help but think of Qin Siener and Enbiru in The Best Servant. The two demonesses from the White Lotus cult, one big and one small. Lin Sam was really... Oh no, he was really blessed. B** starred. How dare you insult our holy lady? The people from the White Lotus School were enraged. They drew their swords and were about to charge over. Song Qing-shu shrugged his shoulders without a care in the world. Truthfully speaking, although the other party had a large number of people, with his current cultivation, they were simply a motley crew. Stop! At this moment, a gentle voice came from the back of the crowd. The people from the White Lotus Society quickly quietened down. Song Qing-shu had a strange look on his face. This voice was flirtatious and sweet, very different from the previous one. Could it be that he had misheard? The members of the school of White Lotus quickly parted, revealing a small path. Two graceful women slowly walked out. Although they were dressed in plain clothes, they shone with a faint brilliance. As they walked, they were like weak willows swaying in the wind. Even though their faces were covered with veils, just by looking at their beautiful eyes, one could tell that they were two extremely beautiful women. However, upon closer inspection, there was still a difference between the two women. One of them had a smile on her face, which added a tinge of charm, while the other was as cold as ice. If he guessed correctly, she was the one who had said that earlier sentence. Song Qing-shu tried his best to take a few more glances at her. Actually, with his current cultivation, it was very difficult for such a thin veil to obstruct his vision. When he saw the other party's face clearly, he was very sure that he did not know her. However, why did there seem to be a hint of anger in her eyes? It was as if she knew him. Tang sire, I didn't expect that we would have to trouble you personally this time. The yellow-robed woman's expression was a little nervous. Over the years, Jianshan Academy and the White Lotus Society had been fighting fiercely. As the Holy Lady of Jianshan Academy, she had naturally come into contact with the Holy Lady of the White Lotus Society, Tang Sire, on several occasions. Tang Sire's martial arts were not inferior to hers, and she was also shrewd and cunning. She also knew many crooked tricks. Every time she dealt with her, she would have a headache. To deal with an immortal-like figure like my sister, how can the Sage King be at ease sending others? The charming and graceful woman in the lead laughed delicately. It was obvious that she was the Tang Sire that the yellow-robed woman had mentioned. Since when did the White Lotus Society have a holy lady? The yellow-robed woman looked at the woman beside Tang Sire, and a hint of worry appeared in her beautiful eyes. Just Tang Sire alone was already very difficult for her to deal with. Now that there was an unfamiliar holy lady who was of equal status to her and a large group of White Lotus Society's experts, it would really be troublesome for her group to deal with them. She subconsciously excluded Song Qing-shu. Although she looked cold on the outside, she was an extremely strong-willed woman. She would never ask for help from others unless she had no other choice. This is a young lady who has recently joined the White Lotus Society. Regardless of appearance or martial arts, she is not inferior to me. Furthermore, she has made several great contributions, so the Sage King has personally conferred her the title of Holy Lady. As Tang Sire spoke, she suddenly sighed. She pulled the woman beside her and said, I had originally thought that with my sister's help, this mission would be a cinch. Who would have thought that the Holy Lady of Jinshan Academy, who is usually as pure as ice and as clean as jade, would hook up with a lover in such a short time? This lover looks calm and unruffled. It seems that his martial arts are very high. The yellow-robed woman was immediately enraged. She stole a glance at Song Qing-shu and happened to meet his seemingly smiling gaze. She could not help but feel her heart skip a beat. She quickly turned around and glared at Tang Sire. "What do you mean by lover? This is the style of the White Lotus Society's demonesses. I don't dare to associate myself with you." Song Qing-shu could not help but laugh as well. He looked at the enchanting woman and said, "Beautiful lady, are you referring to me by the lover you speak of?" Tang Sire also laughed. "Mister, you have quite a glib tongue. You can't even see her face, so how do you know that she is not ugly?" Song Qing-shu looked her up and down, his eyes lingering on her graceful and delicate body. "Lady, your features are picturesque, your breasts are high, your waist is slender, and your voice is so enchanting. If a woman like you is ugly, then there will be no good-looking lady in the world." Tang Sire was amused by him. "Mister, aren't you afraid that your female companion will be angry with you for saying this? I have already noticed that this lady could not help but pout." Zhao Min, who was mentioned by her, smiled slightly. "He always gets carried away when he sees a beauty. I am already used to it. However, as a woman, let me kindly remind you that this man is poisonous. Don't be careless and fall into his trap." Song Qing-shu looked at her with a gloomy expression. "Are you praising me or insulting me? Why don't you guess?" Zhao Min blinked her large eyes and looked at him with a smile on her face. "I don't know if I'll fall into his trap, but I can see that lady has already fallen into his trap." Tang Sire suddenly turned to the yellow-robed woman. "Zhao Ingluo, this love rival of yours is a bit strong. She is so beautiful, smart, and cute. Even your younger sister is a bit worried for you." A strange expression appeared on Song Qing-shu's face. Most people only knew that the yellow-robed woman's surname was Yang. There were only a few who knew that she was a princess of the Song dynasty. This Tang Sire was really resourceful. Before the yellow-robed woman could reply, Zhao Min had already hugged Song Qing-shu's arm and giggled. "Brother Qing-shu, am I really as good as this sister's praise?" Chapter 867. Tang Sire also looked strangely at her companion. She quickly turned her head back and said with a smile, "My younger sister is usually very conservative. She might not be able to stand the scene of you two flirting. Young master, please don't take it to heart." Song Qing smiled and shook his head. "I have a very high tolerance for pretty girls. However, I have a question for your younger sister." He paused for a moment, then slowly said, "Do you know a girl with the surname Zhou?" The frosty girl's expression changed slightly, but she quickly concealed it. She said coldly, "I don't know her. That's a pity. I saw that you look similar to an old friend of mine, so I wanted to introduce you two to each other." Song Qing had asked this because Zhou Zhiruo had previously said that she wanted to subdue her father's former power. Her father, Zhou Zhuang, was the former holy king of the White Lotus School. However, so much time had passed, and there was no news at all. He was really worried. When he saw this girl, he had thought that she was Zhou Zhiruo in disguise. However, he could clearly see that although this girl was also very beautiful, she was clearly not Zhou Zhiruo. "Young master, your excuse for seducing women is too old-fashioned." Tang Sire giggled. "But does young master know that seducing the holy lady of our school is a serious crime? You will be skinned and your heart dug out. Is that so? I'm so scared." Song Qing patted his chest and pretended to be extremely terrified. Watching from the side, Zhao Min and the yellow-robed girl cursed under their breaths. Song Qing quickly changed the topic. "Anyway, I've already seduced you. I'm going to die anyway. Why don't I seduce you? What do you think of me, miss? Do I look okay? Are you interested in a round or not?" The smile on Tang Sire's face froze. Even though she didn't really understand what she meant by one round, women were naturally very sensitive to such things. She knew that it was definitely not something good. Her voice couldn't help but turn colder. Zhao Ingluo, you're a man who eats from a bowl while looking at the pot. He even dares to seduce other women in front of you. Do you want me to discipline him for you? The yellow-robed girl was originally angry at her various filthy words, but hearing her words, her anger immediately disappeared. She couldn't help but reveal a big smile. Since sister is so kind, then I'll have to trouble you. The yellow-robed girl's heart was already blooming with joy. No matter how smart Tang Sire was, she did not know that she had kicked an iron plate this time. Tang Sire was startled. She did not expect this reply. Seeing the yellow-robed girl's slightly raised lips, she subconsciously felt that the other had dug a hole for her to jump. At this time, her companion pulled her hand and whispered in her ear, "Sister, we don't have much time. Let's catch them first." Tang Sire looked up at the dust rising in the distance. She knew that the Jin people had probably caught up and would arrive in about an hour. It would indeed be troublesome to delay any longer. Since sister agrees, then how about this? Please come to my house as guests. I'll teach this disobedient lover of yours a lesson. What do you think? Tang Sire looked at the yellow-robed girl. Although she was smiling, her eyes were full of murderous intent. The yellow-robed girl knew that she had decided to take action. Just as she was about to remind Song Qing to be careful, she heard the other say, "Take your sisters and retreat first. My father, 4th Uncle Zhang, and 6th Uncle Yin will escort you all back to Southern Song. Leave this to me." The yellow-robed girl immediately became anxious. "No, I already owe you a lot this time. How can I let you take such a big risk? This Tang Sire is highly skilled in kung fu and cunning. The White Lotus cult has many people. We can deal with her together." Before she finished, Song Qing interrupted her. "The Jin people have already caught up. You have to leave the territory of Daxing Mansion as soon as possible so that Empress Peiman can take action. If you're caught up by the cavalry of the Jin Kingdom in advance, Empress Peiman can't let you go even if she wants to." Seeing that she was still a little hesitant, Song Qing smiled and said, "Don't worry. It's not like you haven't seen my kung fu. These people can't hurt me. Besides, it's not easy to find an opportunity for you to owe me. It's best if you can't pay me back for the rest of your life. You can pay me back with your body." The yellow-robed girl blushed, but she was rarely angry. "You are helping me out of kindness, but you have to be so glib. Well, I'll remember this favor. If you have a chance to come to Linen in the future, you can come to Jinshan Courtyard to find me." After saying that, she smiled at him and turned to leave. She began to order her subordinates to leave in another direction with the carriages. Zhao Min sighed and said, "I'm really worried for Zhou Zhuo. If she doesn't keep an eye on people like you, she will definitely get a house full of sisters for her." Song Qing couldn't help but laugh. "Since when did the commandery princess get so close to Zhiruo? If I remember correctly, you two should be sworn enemies. Shouldn't you be happy to see her suffer?" Zhao Min held her breath and said angrily, "It's none of your business. I'm happy to worry for her." Seeing that they were chatting and packing up their luggage without paying any attention to them, Tang Sire couldn't help but be angry. She couldn't help but say coldly, "You want to leave? Have you asked me?" Zhao Min poked Song Qing's waist gloatingly. "Someone is angry. See, pleasing a girl will inevitably annoy another girl." Song Qing asked curiously, "I wonder if the commandery princess is happy or angry now." Zhao Min curled her lips. "What I'm worried about now is that you've sent away so many experts, and you're the only one left. If you can't deal with these White Lotus disciples, won't I, the dignified Mongolian princess, become a prisoner of the evil cult?" Seeing that no one was paying attention to Tang Sire, the people from the White Lotus cult immediately became indignant. "The saintess is asking you a question. Are you deaf?" Song Qing smiled and raised his head to look at the people from the White Lotus cult. He said slowly, "If I want them to leave, they will naturally leave." "How arrogant!" Tang Sire laughed coldly. With a wave of her hand, her subordinates took out crossbows from their backs and pointed them at the backs of the yellow-shirt woman and the others. "If you dare to take another step, I guarantee that you will become porcupines in the next moment." The yellow-shirt woman turned around and saw the cold gleam on the arrowheads. Her expression changed slightly. The military's godly mechanized crossbows. Where did you get them? She could not help but be shocked. Crossbows were different from bows and arrows. A good archer would need several years of training to achieve some success. However, crossbows were different. Even if they had never come into contact with one before, as long as they were taught how to use it, they would be able to fire it freely. Moreover, their accuracy was usually guaranteed. These things were also feared by the people of the martial world. After all, ordinary experts who had trained hard for dozens of years might not even be able to defeat one crossbow. Therefore, since the invention of the crossbow, it had been classified as a prohibited item by the imperial court and had never been circulated among the people. Song Qing looked at the crossbows in their hands thoughtfully. In his previous life, after firearms became popular, martial arts gradually declined. This was because after training hard for dozens of years, it was still not comparable to a child holding a gun. Although one's martial arts reached a certain level, such as the level of a first-rate expert in the martial world, they would not be afraid of crossbows and arrows. However, how many people in the martial world could reach this level? Without a large number of martial arts practitioners as a foundation, there would only be fewer and fewer people who could become first-rate experts. In the end, martial arts would also decline. Why do you care where I got them? If your people dare to move again, I'll give the order to fire. At that time, perhaps you can escape with your martial arts, but how many of your sisters will survive? Tang Sire said confidently. She knew that with Zhao Yingluo's martial arts, it would be difficult to capture her. However, these sisters were her weakness. As long as she played this card well, she might really be able to bring her back to the White Lotus Society. At that time, the Sage King would definitely be pleased. Song Qing's thoughts were interrupted by her. He raised his head and saw the questioning gaze of the yellow-robed girl. He could not help but smile faintly. Don't worry and go. I'm here. The yellow-robed girl hesitated for a moment. Every member of the White Lotus Society had a crossbow. Once fired, although it would not be as exaggerated as a volley of arrows would definitely take the lives of at least half of the people in the caravan. However, she only hesitated for a few seconds. When she saw Song Qing's deep gaze, she subconsciously chose to believe him. Go, the yellow-robed girl ordered. At the same time, she stayed at the back of the caravan. If the opponent fired, she would do her best to block the arrows. Tang Sire narrowed her eyes when she saw that the yellow-robed girl had completely ignored her warning. She waved her hand and said coldly, "Release the arrows." Upon receiving the order, several hundred disciples of the White Lotus Society pressed the buttons in their hands. Several hundred crossbow bolts shot towards the yellow-robed girl's caravan like streaks of black light. Zhao Min cried out. She and Song Qing were currently in between the disciples of the White Lotus and the yellow-robed girl's caravan. They were the first to bear the brunt of the crossbow bolts. Even though she was used to seeing storms, she still felt her scalp go numb. Song Qing reached out to protect her behind him, then raised his other hand. The following scene immediately caused all the disciples of the White Lotus Society to stare blankly. The whistling bolts seemed to have been restrained by a large, invisible hand, and were all frozen in midair. The reason why they used the word frozen was because they could not find any other words to describe the instantaneous change from movement to stillness. How is this possible? Tang Sire, who had thought that victory was within her grasp, was completely thrown into disarray when she saw this scene. Everything that had happened had far exceeded her understanding. Perhaps even a saint ruler would not be able to do this. Just who was this frivolous young master? The yellow-robed girl was currently on guard, preparing to deal with the incoming rain of arrows. She just happened to see everything that had happened, and her eyes shone brightly. Even though she knew that Song Qing was very skilled in martial arts, she did not think that he would be so skilled that he could stop so many crossbow bolts with just a wave of his hand. Chapter 868. The yellow-robed woman was no longer worried about Song Qingshu's safety. She looked at him deeply, then turned around and ordered her subordinates to escort the carriages away. She knew that they were not completely out of danger yet. Only by bringing these people back to Southern songs safely would they not waste their efforts. Only when the yellow-robed woman and her entourage disappeared into the distance did the people from the White Lotus Society come to their senses. Tang's sire flew into a rage out of humiliation and said, "What are you all standing there for? Keep shooting." Song Qingshu frowned slightly. Although he could stop the arrows, it was a beautiful move, but it consumed a lot of internal energy. He was not stupid enough to stand there and take a beating, letting the enemy exhaust him with arrows. Seeing that the White Lotus Society members were starting to reload the arrows, Song Qingshu lowered his hand. The arrows that were fixed in the air changed direction and flew back under everyone's shocked gazes. The White Lotus Society members were already in a state of panic and shock, so they were not prepared at all. They were caught unprepared, and 70 to 80% of them were instantly killed. Only a few with high martial arts skills barely escaped the fate of being pierced through the heart by the arrows. However, almost all of them were wounded. Looking at their terrified expressions, it was likely that they had lost the ability to fight. Tang's sire's heart was bleeding. This time, she had brought all the elites of the White Lotus Society. Coupled with the strong crossbows that the Sage King had obtained from the army camp, she thought that would be safe against the people from Jinshan Academy, who knew that they would encounter a freak like Song Qingshu. With such martial arts skills, you are definitely not a nameless person in the martial arts world. Why did you pretend to be Zhao Yingluo's lover and plot against our people? Tang's sire trembled, her voice no longer as gentle as before. When did I say that I was her lover? You were the one who took it for granted the moment you arrived. Are you blaming me? Seeing that most of the White Lotus Society members had lost the ability to fight, leaving only the two saintesses, Song Qingshu was not in a hurry. He chuckled and chatted with her. The longer they delayed, the better. It would be best if they could wait for the Jin cavalry to catch up and confront the White Lotus Society. Not only would they fight each other, but they could also push the blame to the White Lotus Society to avoid future trouble. Who the hell are you? Tang's sire's face darkened even more as she listened to him joking around. I am Song Qingshu. Now that things had come to this, there was nothing to hide. There were so many people here today, and the people from the White Lotus Society would be able to find out once they returned. Golden Snake King Song Qingshu. Tang's sire was startled. Qingshu could be said to be the most famous person in the martial arts world. It was unexpected that his kung fu was even higher than the rumors said. The Golden Serpent Camp and the White Lotus Society have never interfered with each other. Why are you making things difficult for us? Tang's sire had no choice but to use the school of White Lotus to pressure him. Although the Golden Serpent Camp was in the limelight recently, it was still lacking compared to the school of White Lotus, which had existed for hundreds of years. Song Qingshu said curiously, "Miss, you must be joking. I was walking on a main road, and then the people from the White Lotus Society came out and shot randomly. If you want to talk about making things difficult, it should be the White Lotus Society making things difficult for the Golden Serpent Camp." Tang's sire held her breath. She knew that she was indeed in the wrong this time. However, if she left with her tail between her legs, how was she going to establish herself in the society in the future? Let's not talk about who is in the right and who is in the wrong today. You have hurt so many of our brothers, and we can't just let it go. Tang's sire took a step forward and cupped her hands. Tang's sire, the saintess of the White Lotus Society, would like to learn from the Golden Snake King. Song Qingshu could not help but laugh. Are you sure you want to fight me? Tang's sire replied expressionlessly. Although your kung fu is high, it may not be invincible. Do you want your companion to come along? Song Qingshu glanced at the other saintess who had been silent beside him. He had a strange sense of familiarity with this mysterious saintess, even though he had never seen her before. No need, I alone am enough. As soon as Tang's sire's voice fell, a ribbon shot out from her sleeve and went straight for Song Qingshu. This weapon is quite unique. Song Qingshu glanced at it and did not dodge, allowing the ribbon to wrap around his waist. Tang's sire's face lit up. She hurriedly reached out to pull back the ribbon in an attempt to disrupt his center of gravity. However, she did not expect that she would not be able to move it at all. Instead, a great force came from the ribbon, causing her to stagger and fall into Song Qingshu's arms. She exclaimed and tried her best to stabilize her body. However, the gap between the two of them was too great. Her efforts had no effect at all. Almost without any hesitation, she threw herself into Song Qingshu's arms. Right at this moment, the panic on her face disappeared without a trace, replaced by a strange smile on the corners of her lips. She did not know when, but two amazed short daggers appeared in her hands, shining with cold light. Borrowing the force of her pouncing on Song Qingshu's chest, she suddenly stabbed towards his waist. However, her smile quickly froze because the amazed thorns did not stab into his body as expected. Instead, they were firmly caught by his fingers. Tisk, TSK, TSK, you little girl are really ruthless. You want to go for my waist. I have so many confidants. If you hurt their waist, their lower body, oh no, what about the happiness of the rest of their lives? Song Qingshu looked at Tang Sire with a faint smile. Zhao Min, who was not far away, could not help but spit. What nonsense are you talking about? As the saintess of the White Lotus School, Tang Sire's martial arts were not for nothing. Seeing that her hands were being restrained by her opponent, she lowered her upper body and flipped one of her long legs forward from behind her. She lightly tapped on Song Qingshu's forehead. Although this kick was like a dragonfly touching the surface of the water, once it hit a major acupuncture point on someone's forehead, they would be seriously injured even if they did not die. Song Qingshu's body leaned to the side and narrowly dodged her foot. At the same time, he took advantage of the time when she was exhausted and had not yet recovered her strength to open his arms and put her leg under his armpit. The two of them leaned against each other in an extremely ambiguous position. Tang Sire's beautiful face turned pale, and she hurriedly wanted to withdraw her leg. However, her opponent's arm was like an iron hoop, and she could not move at all. Song Qingshu could not help but whistle. Your saintess's flexibility is really amazing. Not far away, Zhao Min secretly spat and walked to the side of a big tree. Out of sight, out of mind. The other saintess of the White Lotus School had her eyes lowered, and her expression could not be seen clearly. Let go of me. Tang Sire knew that her current position was very embarrassing, and she could not help but feel embarrassed and angry. It took me so much effort to catch you. How can I let you go? Song Qingshu smiled. Moreover, if I, the great Golden Snake King, obediently let go of a person just because of a mere saintess like you, doesn't that mean that the Golden Snake Camp is inferior to the White Lotus School? You can't let go. Tang Sire tried to raise her head with great effort, but suddenly a dark light shot out from her mouth. Song Qingshu was about to reply, but he suddenly felt a sense of danger. He hurriedly moved 3 feet to the side and narrowly dodged the hidden weapon from her mouth. Tang Sire took the opportunity to jump several feet away and looked at him with lingering fear. At this moment, Song Qingshu could not help but praise. No wonder Ing Luo said that you were full of tricks. If I had not reacted quickly enough, I would have fallen into your hands. End of this chapter. Chapter 869. Thank you for the compliment, Golden Snake King. Tang Sire finally regained her usual composure, and a charming smile appeared on her face. It's a pity that I couldn't hurt you at all. Song Qingshu spread his hands and said, I can't help it. Who asked me to be so good at martial arts? Tang Sire's face stiffened. She paused for a moment before continuing. Golden Snake King's way of speaking is really different. Song Qingshu chuckled and said, I'm different in many ways. You can follow me back and slowly get to know me. Tang Sire giggled and said, Can I understand that Golden Snake King wants to capture me? Song Qingshu shrugged and said, We've already taken revenge on the White Lotus group today. In that case, we might as well go all out. You're the White Lotus Saintess after all. With you in our hands, the White Lotus group won't be able to retaliate for fear of harming the innocent. The Golden Snake Camp's current strategy was to hide their strength and bide their time. It was unwise to fight the White Lotus group at this juncture because they would not gain anything even if they won. Instead, they would suffer heavy casualties. How about this? Tang's sire rolled her eyes and said, "How about we make a bet?" "What kind of bet?" Song Qing-shu asked curiously. Tang's sire said with a smile, "In terms of martial arts, I'm definitely not as good as the famous Golden Snake King. However, I happen to be good at using hidden weapons. If you can safely take one of my hidden weapons, then I'll be your slave from now on and listen to the Golden Snake King's orders forever. Otherwise, I hope the Golden Snake King will let us live." "Saintess, you can't do that. You're of noble status. How can you risk your life for us lowly people?" "The White Lotus Saintess has always been pure. This Song guy is a famous playboy in the martial world. How can the Saintess serve him?" Song Qing-shu was speechless when he heard this. What's going on? Is my reputation really that bad? At the same time, he could not help but look at Tang's sire in confusion. This woman is enchanting. I'd believe it if she said she was the top girl of a brothel. Is it a joke to say she's pure? Tang's sire did not expect her subordinates to react so strongly. She shouted angrily, "Shut up! I've made up my mind. Say no more." She then looked up at Song Qing-shu and asked, "Golden Snake King, do you dare to bet with me? It seems that you're confident." Song Qing-shu could not help but feel a little suspicious. No matter how brilliant this woman's concealed weapon technique was, it was impossible for her to hurt him. So where did she get her confidence from? What? Could it be that the famous Golden Snake King is afraid of a little girl like me? Tang's sire laughed. Little girl? Song Qing-shu's gaze fell on her full chest, and he clicked his tongue in wonder. "You're not small at all." Tang's sire was stunned at first. Then, she realized what he was referring to. Her ears turned red, and she said angrily, "Are you going to bet or not?" "Bet, of course I'll bet." Song Qing-shu changed the topic, "But I still want to confirm, if you lose, will you really listen to my orders?" "Of course." Tang's sire nodded slightly. "Will you do anything I ask?" Song Qing-shu propped up his chin and looked at her playfully. As soon as he said this, the White Lotus disciples all cursed and scolded him, but he quickly stopped them. However, Song Qing-shu did not stop. Tang's sire blushed and nodded again. "Yes, I'm a little excited just thinking about it." Song Qing-shu rubbed his hands together. "Come on." Although he spoke frivolously, he did not dare to be careless. Since the other party was so confident, the hidden weapons later would be a little tricky. Tang's sire put her hands behind her back and circled around Song Qing-shu. Song Qing-shu frowned slightly, but he was bold and did not react. He stood in the middle without moving. Golden Snake King is indeed a top expert in the world. He's just standing there casually, but there's not a single flaw on him, Tang's sire suddenly praised. "Is that so?" Song Qing-shu smiled slightly. "But I'm clearly standing here with flaws all over my body. Could it be that you're stalling for time?" "Full of flaws, but in fact there are no flaws. Facing an expert like Golden Snake King, I need to be confident before I..." Tang's sire circled around Song Qing-shu and just happened to walk between him and Zhao Min. As soon as she said the word go, silver needles shot out from her sleeves. However, their target was not Song Qing-shu, but Zhao Min, who was standing under a nearby tree. Torrential pear blossom needles. Song Qing-shu was shocked. He remembered that his opponent was surnamed Tang and couldn't help but think of the Tang sect's peerless hidden weapons. However, he had no time to be distracted. He hurriedly rushed toward Zhao Min and stretched out his hand at the same time. He suddenly spread out his cultivation and tried to freeze the densely packed needles in the air. The corners of Tang's sire's mouth rose, and she suddenly shot out 3 objects as thin as cicada's wings. Song Qing-shu saw them from the corner of his eyes, and he was somewhat afraid of these unknown hidden weapons. However, if he dodged at this time, he would not be able to control the torrential pear blossom needles, and Zhao Min would probably die. Humph, I don't believe that hidden weapons can break through my protective genuine qi. Song Qing-shu gritted his teeth and no longer cared about the hidden weapons shooting at him. Instead, he moved all the torrential pear blossom needles in the air to the nearby ground. At this time, the three thin, hidden weapons had already arrived in front of him. Song Qing-shu did not dare to be careless. He once again set up a qi wall in front of him. With his current cultivation, although the qi wall was not as magical as the diamond body invincible divine art, even if he stood still and did not dodge, and let the five uniques master hit him with all his strength, at most, a few ribs would be broken. It would be very difficult to get a fatal injury. No matter how powerful Tang Sire's hidden weapons were, they could not be more powerful than the five uniques master's full-strength attack. Seeing the three sparkling and translucent objects collide with his qi wall, Song Qing-shu smiled faintly. Just as he was about to use his qi to deflect them back, the three objects that were as thin as cicada's wings seemed to ignore his qi wall and effortlessly pass through it, shooting into his body. Song Qing-shu only felt a little pain at the place where he was stabbed. Then, an unbearable numbness and itchiness surged in his meridians. His face suddenly became gloomy. "Golden Snake King, what do you think of my hidden weapons?" Tang Sire giggled. Seeing that the situation had changed, Zhao Min hurriedly ran to Song Qing-shu's side. There was a trace of panic in her voice. "What's wrong with you?" At this moment, Song Qing-shu was trying his best to resist the numbness and itchiness in his body. He could not speak for a while. You don't need to ask him. He feels like thousands of insects are biting his heart. How can he have the strength to answer you? Tang Sire glanced at Song Qing-shu and could not help but show a surprised expression. Golden Snake King is indeed worthy of being called the Golden Snake King. If a person was hit by this hidden weapon, they would have long rolled on the ground and their whole body would have been torn to pieces. Golden Snake King is actually able to stay still. I really admire you. Who is Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao to you? At this time, Song Qing-shu's voice was extremely hoarse. It was obvious that he was enduring great pain. The rest of the people in the field did not know why he suddenly mentioned a person they had never heard of. Only Tang Sire's expression changed slightly. Do you know the origin of this hidden weapon? It's hard to live or die. No hidden weapon in the world can compare to the life-death note. Song Qing-shu gritted his teeth and said he had been too careless. In fact, with his cultivation, even Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao herself might not be able to hit him with the life-death note. However, facing a junior whose martial arts were far inferior to Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao, it was difficult for him to be as cautious as he was when facing Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao. In addition, Tang Sire used Zhao Min to make him have to use his protective true qi to block the life-death note. The life-death note specialized in internal true qi, so he suffered a great loss. Hearing him mention the life-death note, Tang Sire glanced at the subordinates of the White Lotus Society secretly. A trace of killing intent flashed in her eyes, but she quickly hid it and smiled. Golden Snake King, you really have a good memory. To be honest, if you didn't want to save this girl, I wouldn't have been able to hit you. Zhao Min couldn't help but look at Song Qing-shu and sighed. This time, I am a burden to you. Do you feel very guilty? If we have a chance to escape this time, you should just devote yourself to me. Song Qing-shu endured the pain in his body and squeezed out a smile on his face. Zhao Min glared at him angrily. You're still so frivolous at a time like this. I'm being serious right now, and I'm being serious. Song Qing-shu looked back at her quietly. Zhao Min was slightly stunned. Her lips moved, and she was about to say something, but she was interrupted by the other saintess of the White Lotus Society. The two of you have been lovey-dovey since just now. Now that you are about to die, you are still lovey-dovey here. Don't you think it's disgusting? Seeing the disgust in her eyes, Zhao Min stuck out her chest. We are lovey-dovey. It is none of your business. Slap. A crisp slap answered her. Not only was Zhao Min stunned, but even Tang Sire was stunned. This younger saintess had a very cold temperament. Apart from teaching affairs, she almost didn't care about anything else. Sometimes, Tang Sire even suspected that she was a piece of thousand-year-old ice that had cultivated into a spirit. Otherwise, how could she be so emotionless? It was not until she saw this slap that she realized that she was still human. A few bright red fingerprints immediately appeared on Zhao Min's fair face. She was so angry that her entire body trembled. With her status, who dared to hit her since she was young? Now, she was hit by a woman from a rebel organization. How could she take this lying down? There were many experts around her, so she had the opportunity to learn many exquisite martial arts. As such, her martial arts were not weak. When she was hit, she subconsciously used the jade-shattering Kuan Gang to counterattack the other party's face. However, she did not know how the other party moved. First, she felt her wrist go numb. Then, all the acupoints on her body were sealed. How dare you be so rude to me today? The Mongolian army will definitely crush all of you traitors from the White Lotus Society into ashes. Zhao Min had just finished speaking when she received another slap. She bit her lower lip so hard that it almost bled. Song Qingshu said coldly, "You will regret slapping her twice just now. I will make you pay for it tenfold." End of this chapter. Chapter 870. Why? Does it hurt you to see me hit her? The woman stopped and stared at Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu stared at her and began to mobilize the genuine qi in his body. He wanted to kill the two White Lotus demonesses, even if he had to suffer a life-threatening injury. As if she had seen through his thoughts, the woman gently pressed her hand on his chest and whispered in his ear, "Don't be impulsive." "You?" Upon hearing the familiar voice, Song Qingshu's expression became extremely strange. Zhao Min also widened her almond-shaped eyes in shock. "Sister, don't talk nonsense with them. The Jin Kingdom's cavalry is almost here. Let's tie them up and take them away." Tang Sire walked over anxiously. However, before she could finish her sentence, she suddenly froze. The woman had suddenly attacked her and sealed all her acupoints. With her martial arts, even with Song Qingshu's cultivation, it was unlikely that he would be able to subdue her in less than a dozen moves. But how could she guard against her companion's attack? She was captured in one move. The remaining followers of the White Lotus Society were dumbfounded. Their first thought was that the two Sanuses were having an internal conflict. After all, the internal struggle for power in the White Lotus Society was quite fierce, and the two Sanuses were competitors. However, Tang Sire had been a saintess for many years, while the other one had only appeared recently. Emotionally, these people were more supportive of Tang Sire. When they came to their senses, they all raised their weapons and rushed over to save her. "What are you doing? Let go of the saintess." However, the only response they got was a black hidden weapon. But seeing that these pebbles didn't look impressive and didn't have the slightest bit of accuracy, not a single one of them hit them. All of them landed on the ground nearby. The group of people laughed loudly. However, before they could finish laughing, they heard a terrifying roar and heat wave. Then they lost consciousness. Looking at the scene of explosions, Tang Sire's expression changed drastically. "Thunderbolt, fireball. Are you from the Amaze sect?" The woman took off her veil, and then took off a thin mask, revealing a pretty face that seemed to be angry and bashful at the same time. Who else could it be but Zhou Zhiruo, who he had not seen for a long time? "It's you." Zhao Min, who was standing at the side, was instantly infuriated. When she thought of how she had been slapped twice for no reason, her heart itched with hatred. "Shut up. The Jin Kingdom's cavalry is almost here. Let's get them out of here." Zhou Zhiruo held Song Qingshu's arm and helped him walk to the side path. Zhao Min was dumbfounded. "You want me to carry this woman?" "No, I'll help Song Qingshu. You carry him yourself." Ever since she was young, she had never served someone like this. "I'm Qingshu's wife. What are you to him?" Zhou Zhiruo raised her jade-like chin slightly. Zhao Min's breath caught in her throat as she was choked by Ji Yunshu's words. After a long time, she regained her composure and said, "Humph, what's so great about being married? Even if you're married, you can still divorce your wife." Although she said so, when she saw Zhou Zhiruo walking further and further away with Song Qingshu, she still followed them with Tang Sire. They soon found a cave nearby. Seeing Song Qingshu sweating profusely, Zhou Zhuo took out a handkerchief to wipe the sweat for him. Do you feel uncomfortable? Song Qingshu's lips trembled, but he did not say anything in the end. Tang Sire could not help but sneer. Of course I feel uncomfortable. Being hit by the life and death spell, I can't even beg for death. Zhou Zhuo raised her eyebrows and gave her a slap. Give me the antidote. Tang Sire's veil had already fallen off during the fight earlier. A red mark soon appeared on her pink and fair face. She glared at Zhou Zhuo and said, I didn't expect that the dignified Amei sex leader would actually lower herself to become a holy maiden by relying on us, the evil demon's unorthodox path. Hee. The White Lotus faction originally belonged to my father. What's wrong with me taking back my father's belongings? Zhou Zhuo snorted coldly. Don't change the topic. Give me the antidote. There's no antidote for the life and death spell. Just wait to be a widow. Tang Sire turned her face away. However, her expression soon changed. Seeing that Zhou Zhuo was taking off her clothes, Tang Sire was shocked and angry. What are you doing? If you don't give me the antidote, I can only take off your clothes and check them one by one. Zhou Zhuo answered matter-of-factly. Tang Sire raised her head and looked at Song Qingshu. Her face turned green and then red. Stop. I'll give you the antidote. You should have done this earlier. Zhou Zhuo unsealed the acupoints on her body. Zhou Zhuo had already used the special acupoint sealing technique from the 9 manual. Although Tang Sire could move her limbs at this moment, her entire body was weak, and she was unable to circulate any true qi. Tang Sire took out a porcelain bottle from her pocket and threw it in front of her. Then, she hugged her knees and sat aside. She looked at her. When Zhou Zhuo took out the antidote and was about to feed it to Song Qingshu, Zhao Min reached out and stopped her. Wait, let her take one first. Seeing that the two women were staring at her, Tang Sire snorted. She took out one and swallowed it directly. Zhou Zhuo breathed a sigh of relief. She took out the antidote and gave it to Song Qingshu. How do you feel? Do you feel better? Zhou Zhuo and Zhao Min stared at Song Qingshu nervously. Song Qingshu took a long breath and said, The numbness and itchiness in my body have finally stopped. Tang Sire said at this time, Since the poison in his body has been cured, can you let me go? Zhou Zhuo said expressionlessly, Do you think I will let you go? Tang Sire didn't look surprised at all. Instead, she looked as if she had expected it. You will let me go. You are quite confident. Zhou Zhuo couldn't help laughing. Of course. Tang Sire moved her eyes to Song Qingshu. Because it is not the real antidote of the life-death note. It can only temporarily relieve the numbness and itchiness. When the bottle of analgesic is used up, the numbness and itchiness will come back 10 times more. Zhou Zhuo's face changed. Give me the real antidote, and I can spare your life. Do you think I will believe you? Tang Sire curled her lips disdainfully. Hey, don't take off my clothes. Zhou Zhuo was not moved. Instead, she winked at Zhao Min and said, Let's search together. Zhao Min was stunned and joined in. I really don't have the antidote. Soon, her coat fell to the ground. Tang Sire was really anxious, and her face turned red. Don't search her. Song Qingshu coughed. She doesn't have the antidote. Zhou Zhuo and Zhao Min looked back at him in confusion. How do you know? Because the life-death note itself has no antidote. Song Qingshu answered in a deep voice. Tang Sire's face changed dramatically. Zhou Zhuo suddenly looked back at her and said, You lied to me? As soon as she finished speaking, 5 jade-like fingers were clasped on her throat. Not in white bone claw, Tang Sire's pupils shrank. She had been fighting with the yellow-robed woman for so many years, and she knew this martial art. Afraid that the woman would break her neck instantly, she said in a hurry, Although the life-death note has no antidote, I know someone who can. End of this chapter. Chapter 871. Say it. Thinking that Song Qingshu's life was likely to be in danger, Zhou Zhuo suddenly became anxious. Tang Sire felt uncomfortable being pinched by her. She hurriedly pointed to the hand on her neck and said, Let go of me first. Zhou Zhuo snorted and said, "If you dare to play tricks again, don't blame me for being ruthless." Then she let go of her hand. Tang Sire took a few deep breaths of fresh air and then said, "I can tell you, but you have to unseal my acupoints first." "No, but I can promise you that I will let you go after I tell you." Zhou Zhuo refused flatly. Zhao Min, who was next to her, rarely agreed with her judgment. Tang Sire bit her lips and said, "If you don't unseal my acupoints, I won't be able to resist you if you go back on your word. I'm not that stupid. You have no choice but to trust me." Zhou Zhuo moved her fingers subconsciously. The reason why she didn't agree was that Tang Sire's martial arts were too high and she was cunning. Zhou Zhuo was not sure that she could control her after unsealing her acupoints. Noticing her actions, Tang Sire's eyebrows twitched. She didn't want to experience that uncomfortable feeling a second time, but she also knew that she couldn't give in on this point. "Since that's the case, let me and your man go to the throne together. At that time, I might even help you serve him on account of our sisterhood. Little sister, don't be angry at that time." After saying that, she giggled. Zhao Min couldn't help sighing and said, "Your shameless look is very like my style in the past, but why do I feel more and more uncomfortable now?" Zhou Zhuo rolled her eyes at her and said, "Now you know how shameless you were in the past." Zhao Min raised her eyebrows and said, "What? Do you want to quarrel?" Zhou Zhuo looked at the red mark on her face, and a beautiful smile appeared on her lips. "If I can't beat you, I can hit you." Zhao Min held her breath. Originally, the two women's martial arts were about the same, and she was slightly better than Zhou Zhuo. But after Zhou Zhuo learned the 90 manual, she was far from being her opponent. She rolled her eyes and hurriedly ran to Song Qingshu's side and pulled his arm. "Brother Qingshu won't let you bully me," Song Qingshu said gloomily. "You call me Big Brother Qingshu just because you need my help? It's none of your business." Zhao Min subtly pinched his waist. Noticing the intimate look of the two, Zhou Zhuo narrowed her eyes and said, "You're doing the same thing again. At that time, Zhang Wuji protected you, but now the man you are hugging is my husband. Do you think he will help me or you? So what if he is your husband? I can also let him be my husband. Then we'll be even." Zhao Min replied with a smile. Zhou Zhuo was finally defeated by her. She couldn't help but spit and said, "Are all Mongolian women as shameless as you? What's the use of being shameless?" "I only want Brother Qingshu," Zhao Min said as she shook Song Qingshu's arm. Song Qingshu felt a headache coming on. Of course, he knew that Zhao Min only said that because she needed a shield, so he wouldn't take it seriously. "All right, stop arguing. The poison in my body hasn't been detoxified yet." Only then did the two women snorted and shut their mouths. Only then did Song Qingshu return his attention to Tang Sire. "Miss Tang, I have to admire your cleverness. I haven't been in such a dangerous situation for a long time." Before Tang Sire answered, Zhou Zhuo said sourly, "If you hadn't seen her beauty and had tender feelings for her, how would you have been plotted against by her?" Zhao Min was not satisfied. "Brother Qingshu was obviously injured in order to save me. Don't slander him. If you call him Brother Qingshu again, believe it or not, I will tear your mouth. Brother Qingshu, tear me if you can." Tang Sire and Song Qingshu looked at each other. Finally, Tang Sire pursed her lips and smiled. "Gongzi, it's not easy to have two lovers, right?" "Shut up." Zhou Zhuo and Zhao Min had the same attitude towards Tang Sire, who had hurt Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu was also speechless. He hurriedly changed the topic. "Miss Tang, I can promise to unseal your acupoints, but before that, you have to answer a few questions for me." Tang Sire hesitated for a moment and then nodded. "Okay." She had made up her mind that as long as she refused to tell them who could unseal the life-death notes, answering a few questions was not a big deal. "Just now, you shot 3 life-death notes at my Shaoyang meridians, Shaoyin meridians, and Jia meridians successively." Song Qingshu stared at her without blinking. "How much of the masculine and feminine force did you put into each of the life-death notes in the 3 meridians?" Tang Sire felt dizzy and answered subconsciously, The life-death talisman of Xiaoyang contains 80% yin and 20% yang. The Shine talisman contains 60% yang and 40% yin. The Jian talisman contains 70% yang and 30% yin. I see. Song Qingshu nodded to himself. Tang Sire's expression shook, and she was inexplicably horrified. Was that the 9 manual's soul transfer technique? That's right. So if you know what's good for you, you'd better say it yourself. Zhou didn't use it just now because she didn't know much about this technique in the 9 manual. Besides, even if she knew how to use it, she wasn't sure that she could defeat someone who was almost as powerful as her. Now that she saw Song Qingshu successfully soul transfer technique with Tang Sire, she felt relieved. As long as she could find out who could unseal the life-death notes, Song Qingshu would be saved. Tang Sire's face turned blue and then red. Even if you soul transfer technique with me, it's useless. I don't know how to unseal the life-death notes. Besides, even if you know who can do it, she can't do it for you without my help. You mean Heavenly Mountain Tonglao, right? Song Qingshu looked at her quietly. Tang Sire's face changed. How? How do you know? Song Qingshu smiled and didn't answer. Instead, he continued to ask, what's your relationship with her? Tang Sire immediately closed her lips and turned her head to one side. If you don't tell me, I'll just use the soul transfer technique. Song Qingshu said with a playful expression. Tang Sire bit her lips and finally said in a low voice, Tonglao. Tonglao is my master. What? Hearing this answer, the other 3 people all showed strange expressions. Song Qingshu couldn't help but laugh. That's strange. The successor of the Spirit Vulture Palace in Misty Peak actually went to Jiangnan and became the Holy Virgin of the White Lotus cult, Tang Sire said hurriedly. Only my master can unseal the life-death notes in this world. If you kill me today, my master will know what's going on when she sees the life-death notes on you. She won't help you then. Only Heavenly Mountain Tonglao can unseal the life-death notes in this world. Song Qingshu shook his head. Not necessarily. I can do it myself. Into this chapter. Chapter 872. I admit that you are very good at martial arts, but it is impossible for you to solve the life-death note. Tang Sire hesitated and couldn't help but add, solving the life-death note is a very dangerous process. If you're not careful, your internal organs will burn and you will die. Don't try it, Gongzi. Xiaomin looked at her in surprise, then turned around to look at Song Qingshu. She couldn't help but click her tongue in wonder. Brother Qingshu, I have to admit that you really have a way with women. In such a short time, you've turned a woman who wants to kill you into someone who's worried about you. Since you care so much about my brother Qingshu, why don't you tell him how to solve the life-death note? Tang Sire was anxious. What are you talking about? I'm just worried that he will die and I won't be able to live. Besides, I really don't know how to solve the life-death note. Don't trouble her. She really doesn't know how to solve the life-death note. Song Qingshu pulled Zhao Min and said to Zhou Zhirua, protect me. I'm going to solve the life-death note now. But Zhou Zhirua looked worried. According to what she said, will it be dangerous for you to solve it yourself? Don't worry. I'm sure. Song Qingshu sat cross-legged and closed his eyes. Alas, it's really dangerous. Don't be impulsive. Tang Sire was really anxious. Years ago, after Heaven Mountain Tonglao planted the life and death talismans on the cave masters of the 36 islands and 72 caves, there was no lack of martial arts experts among them. Many of them tried to use their inner energy to dissolve the life and death talismans, but without exception, all of them died a violent death. Seeing that the group of people with the highest martial arts among their companions had died, the rest then completely surrendered to the Vulture Palace. Shut up. Don't disturb his cultivation. Zhou Zhirua sealed her mute acupoint. Although she was also very worried about Song Qingshu's safety, after getting along with him these days, she also knew that her husband was not a person who did not know what was important. Since he said so, she chose to believe him. Without the distractions, Song Qingshu began to pull out the life-death notes. He was so confident because he had been curious about how a thin piece of ice could be so powerful when he watched demigods and semi-devils in his previous life. Therefore, he had done some research and learned what Shuju had learned from Heavenly Mountain Tonglao. The reason why the life-death talismans couldn't be removed was that the types of life-death talismans that Heavenly Mountain Girl planted in her enemies' bodies were different, and the methods she used were also different. It was as if he had used a masculine technique to neutralize the blow. The unsolved life-death notes were in the meridians of Taiyang, Shaoyang, and Yangming, and he felt the Yang Qi and its power increase sharply. The Yang Qi got tangled and went deep into his internal organs, which was beyond his control. If he resolved it with the gentle force, the life-death notes in the Taiyin, Shaoyin, and Jia meridians would cause trouble again. Besides, each life-death note contained different amounts of yin and yang qi. How could others undo it? The people in the 36 islands and 72 caves didn't understand it, so they rashly resolved it with their internal force. Naturally, they ended up in a miserable state. However, after understanding the principle and asking Tang Sire how much yin and yang she had used, Song Qingshu was able to resolve it accordingly. The life-death note in the Shaoyang meridian contained 80% yin and 20% yang. The Shaoyin meridian contained 60% yang and 40% yin, and the Jia meridian contained 70% yang and 30% yin. Song Qingshu silently recalled what Tang Sire had said and couldn't help but feel that the life-death note was indeed insidious. The life-death note in Shaoyang meridian contained 80% yin and 20% yang, so it had to be resolved with 80% yang and 20% yin. However, the Shaoyang meridian contained abundant yang qi, so the life-death note's power would increase dramatically when it sensed the yang qi. Moreover, the yin and yang qi would gradually change. At first, it was 80% yin and 20% yang, but soon it would become 20% yang and 80% yin. Therefore, the yin and yang qi used to resolve a life-death note had to be adjusted according to the situation of a life-death note. If one was not careful, the life-death note would be forced into the internal organs, and even a Daluo Golden Immortal would not be able to save him. Most of the masters in the Jianghu couldn't accurately control their own strength, let alone adjust the yin and yang qi at any time. Fortunately, Song Qingshu's cultivation had almost reached the top in the Jianghu. After combining the Nine Yin Sutra and the Godly Radiating Sutra with the Joyful True Qi, he had cultivated both yin and yang. In the entire Jianghu, no one could compare with him in controlling the yin and yang qi. With one hand, Song Qingshu patted the corresponding meridians with the yang force, and with the other hand, he slowly pulled out the life-death notes with the yin-yang force. After a long time, the heat poison and cold poison in the 3 life-death notes in his body were all removed. He felt that the blockage in the corresponding meridians was suddenly gone, and he felt indescribably comfortable. Song Qingshu secretly felt lucky that Tang Sire's cultivation was not strong enough. If it was the life-death note that was launched by Heavenly Mountain Tonglao, it would not be so easy for him to resolve it. He had to be more careful when facing Heavenly Mountain Tonglao in the future, especially when the life-death note had the ability of this characteristic of penetrating Jinqi was something that should be taken as a warning. "Are you okay now?" Seeing him stand up with a smile, Zhou Jiruo and Zhao Min immediately surrounded him. "I'm fine." Song Qingshu glanced at Zhou Jiruo and said, "Jiruo, thanks to you this time. Otherwise, I would have failed miserably." Zhao Min, who was next to him, couldn't help but curl her lips and run to the side to sulk. Seeing her being embarrassed, Zhou Jiruo's eyes were full of smiles, and she replied, "Let's see if you dare to forget yourself when you see a beautiful girl in the future." I won't." Song Qingshu laughed embarrassedly. In order to divert her attention, he waved his hand and unlocked Tang Sire's mute acupoint in the air. How is it possible? Tang Sire was uncomfortable, and as soon as she was freed, she looked at him in shock. "How did you undo the life-death note?" In her mind, her master's life-death note was the best hidden weapon in the world, and she had the idea that the life-death note was unsolvable since she was a child. Now that she saw an outsider undo it, of course, she was shocked. I know a lot of things. Song Qing-shu wanted to take the opportunity to tease her, but he glanced at Zhou Zhuo and Zhao Min, so he hurriedly held back his impulse and threw 2 pills to her. Take these 2 pills. Tang Sire looked at the 2 pills in her hand with vigilance. One was colorful, and the other was plain. What pills are these? Take them first, Song Qing-shu replied coldly. I won't take them. Tang Sire closed her lips tightly. Even a fool would know that these 2 pills were definitely not tonic. If you don't take them, you can't escape death today. Song Qing-shu's tone was extremely calm. If I take them, I'm afraid I'd rather die than live. Tang Sire bit her lips. You don't have a choice. Every dog has its day, and now it was Song Qing-shu's turn to say this. Tang Sire's face was gloomy. If she was alone, she might really choose to die. However, she carried the hatred and expectations of several generations and did not complete the ancestral teachings. Even if she died, she would not be able to face the ancestors who had sacrificed themselves for this goal. To celebrate the birth of the 3rd leader of this book, thank you for your support. End of this chapter. Chapter 873. Tang Sire's heart ached at the thought of her mother's dying eyes. She picked up 2 pills and swallowed them. She then said coldly, Now can you tell me what these pills are? One is the 3 corpses brain pill, and the other is the leopard fetus tendon-changing pill. As the holy maiden of the White Lotus School, you are very knowledgeable. I'm sure you know the properties of these 2 pills. Song Qing-shu answered. You were able to obtain the treasures of the Sun Moon Church and the Divine Dragon Church. The Golden Snake King is indeed very capable. Tang Sire's heart was not as calm as she appeared on the surface. Although the White Lotus School was powerful in Jiangnan, they did not have much of an advantage over the Sun Moon Church and the Divine Dragon Church. With the addition of the Golden Snake Camp, she might not be able to defeat them even if she asked for help from the Misty Peak. I'll take that as a compliment, Miss Tang. Song Qing-shu smiled and removed the restriction on her body. Come to me for the antidote in a year. You can leave now. Oh, by the way, you're smart girl. You don't need me to teach you what to say and what not to say when you return to the White Lotus School, right? Tang Sire stretched her body and felt that her vital qi was circulating again. Only then did she raise her head and look deeply at Zhou Zhuo. She then walked out of the cave without saying a word and disappeared into the distance. Zhou Zhuo, when he left, he looked at you as if he wanted to swallow you. You'll have a good time in the future, Zhao Min said gloatingly. You don't have to worry about that. Zhou Zhuo said lightly. You don't know what's good for you. Zhao Min curled her lips. She suddenly thought of something and exclaimed, By the way, why did you hit me just now? Do you want to hear the truth or a lie? A faint smile appeared on Zhou Zhuo's lips. Of course it's the truth. Zhao Min stared at her fiercely. Because I wanted to hit you for a long time. Of course I wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity. Zhou Zhuo replied calmly, as if she was talking about something very ordinary. Zhao Min did not expect her to admit it so confidently. According to her previous temperament, she would obviously find all kinds of reasons to whitewash her behavior and pretend to be pitiful to get others to contact her. Who knew that she would suddenly become so direct? Zhao Min did not know how to react for a moment. Are you unhappy that I hit you? Seeing Zhao Min's dumbfounded expression, Zhou Zhuo's lips curved into a smile. To continue, please turn the page. Thicker. Zhao Min was so angry that her teeth itched. She knew that now the martial arts gap between the 2 sides was too big. She was no match for her, and Song Qing-shu could not help her beat his wife. Zhou Zhuo felt that it was not enough to vent her hatred. She took Song Qing-shu's arm and said sweetly, As the wife of Qing-shu, of course I have to drive away flies for my husband when I see some shady women around him. Zhao Min was so angry that her face turned white. Who are you calling shady? Who are you calling a fly? Oh, Zhou Zhuo looked at her with a playful face. Since you are not that kind of shady woman, you must be a decent woman who is ready to marry into the Song family. But I am already the wife of Qing Shu. The one who marries first is the big one. You can at most be a concubine. It is natural that a wife teaches a concubine a lesson. You should get used to this early. Maybe in the future you will encounter this kind of situation often. Zhao Min's lungs were about to explode. She thought that in the past, Zhou Zhuhua had to care about the image of softness and kindness all the time, so her behavior was restricted everywhere. She could take advantage of this to make her suffer again and again. She did not expect that now she had become as shameless as herself in the past. What a wheel of fortune. Now it was she who was embarrassed. Song Qing Shu, as a man, do you mean what you say? But who was Zhao Min? How could she tolerate being bullied by Zhou Zhuhua again and again? She suddenly turned to Song Qing Shu and asked. Seeing the two of them arguing, Song Qing Shu looked at the side and secretly prayed that he would not be involved in it. Unfortunately, God did not pay attention to his request in the end. Of course, I mean what I say. Song Qing Shu couldn't figure out Zhao Min's plan for a while and answered hesitantly. Well, now slap her 20 times. Zhao Min reached out and pointed to Zhou Zhuhua. Zhou Zhuhua raised her eyebrows but did not speak. Instead, she watched how Song Qing Shu would react with great interest. Song Qing Shu looked at her guiltily and said embarrassedly, "Why? When she slapped me just now, you said that you would pay her back tenfold. She slapped me twice, so you should slap her 20 times. Zhao Min replied quickly. Song Qing Shu groaned inwardly. He didn't expect her to remember such a detail in such an urgent situation. It's all a misunderstanding. I didn't know her identity just now. Moreover, she was trying to hide it from Tang's sire. Besides, she wanted to hide it from Tang's sire, so I had to use the trick of suffering." The more Song Qing Shu spoke, the less confident he was because he didn't believe it himself. The trick of suffering? Zhao Min chuckled. Why? Are you not going to keep your promise? Song Qing Shu smiled embarrassedly. I just said it casually. It's not a promise. Well, if you don't think it's a formal promise, then I'll find a formal promise for you. Zhao Min said with a straight face. Didn't you promise me before that you would fulfill one of my conditions? Song Qing Shu's face changed slightly. I did, but you won't, Zhao Min snorted. I didn't think about it at that time, but now I have. Slap Zhou Zhuhua 20 times, and we'll be even. Song Qing Shu was dumbfounded. How can I do that? Why not? Don't tell me that as a man, all your promises are bullsh**. Zhao Min was also bullied by Zhou Zhuhua this time. She had never suffered such a loss since she was a child. While Song Qing Shu was still struggling, Zhou Zhuhua said, Qing Shu, promise her. Song Qing Shu couldn't react for a moment. However, Zhou Zhuhua said coldly, this woman likes to play the game of agreeing to conditions. She takes the opportunity to tie a man's heart. I don't want you to owe her anything anymore, in case she asks for something more difficult in the future like what happened in Haozhou City. Song Qing Shu knew what she was referring to. Back then, Zhang Wuji had to leave with Zhao Min at the wedding banquet in Haozhou City because he had agreed to Zhao Min's 3 conditions. This became the biggest regret in Zhou Zhuhua's life. Speaking of which, I have to thank Miss Zhao for taking Zhang Wuji away in Haozhou City. Otherwise, how could I have a chance to marry you? Song Qing Shu looked at Zhou Zhuhua tenderly. He didn't have any negative emotions because of this. The past was the past. The most important thing for a man was to be magnanimous and confident. Zhou Zhuhua's face turned slightly red. I'm afraid that she will use this condition to make things difficult for you in the future. Compared to other unknown troubles, it's not a big deal for me to be slapped 20 times. You don't have to provoke me. I always do things according to my own mood. Today, I can let Song Qing Shu slap you 20 times. I'm already happy enough. Zhao Min puffed out her chest and finally recovered her dazzling appearance of the past. Chapter 874. Song Qing Shu frowned slightly. Although it was as Zhou Zhuhua had said, this request could be said to be the smallest price to pay. He knew that Zhou Zhuhua and Zhao Min had been fighting with each other for many years. If he, as her husband, slapped Zhou Zhuo 20 times in front of Zhao Min. Where would Zhou Zhuo put her face in the future? At this moment, Song Qingshu's head was about to explode. He used to fantasize about building a big harem, but as a result, 2 women made him dizzy. It was not easy to enjoy the blessings of having multiple wives. The ancients were right. Miss Zhao, if I remember correctly, you once promised me a condition. Since that's the case, how about we call it even? Song Qingshu took out a golden hairpin from his arms. It was taken off from Zhao Min's head on the way to the hospital as a proof of Zhao Min's promise. Seeing clearly what was in his hand, Zhao Min's heart trembled. You've been carrying this golden hairpin with you all the time. Yes. Song Qingshu nodded and handed over the golden hairpin. Miss Zhao, don't embarrass me, okay? You actually used my promise to save Zhou Zhuo. Zhao Min did not take it. Instead, she bit her lip and stared at him. I can't really slap her 20 times. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. Well, don't regret it. Zhao Min's voice turned cold. She reached out to take the golden hairpin. She made up her mind to find a corner and throw it away after taking it back. Out of sight, out of mind. However, her hand caught nothing. It turned out that Zhou Zhuo had snatched the golden hairpin first. Looking at the golden hairpin in her hand carefully, she said with a playful face, "Oh, it turns out to be a token of love." Song Qingshu smiled bitterly and said, "Zhuo, stop fooling around. This is just a witness." Zhou Zhuo looked at him with a faint smile. It was not until he felt a little guilty that she stuffed the golden hairpin back into his arms. Keep it. It's rare for this witch to owe you a promise. It's a pity to use it like this. But Song Qingshu hesitated. It doesn't matter. It's just 20 slaps. I could still take it. After saying that, Zhou Zhuo closed her eyes and raised her chin, revealing her snow-white cheeks. She looked like she was allowing him to do whatever he wanted. Zhao Min watched as the golden hairpin was stuffed back into Song Qingshu's arms. Her red lips parted, but she didn't say anything in the end. 20 slaps. Looking at the delicate face in front of him, how could Song Qingshu bear to hit her? Suddenly, a thought flashed in his mind, and he thought of an idea that could satisfy both sides. Well, Miss Zhao, I promise you. Hearing Song Qingshu's words, Zhou Zhuo's eyelashes trembled, but this was her own choice. Her heart quickly returned to calmness. Song Qingshu looked at Zhao Min and said, "Are you satisfied if I slap her 20 times?" Yes. Zhao Min was stunned. She didn't expect that he would really hit her. Although she also liked to see Zhou Zhuo being hit, seeing that Song Qingshu really wanted to hit her, her mood suddenly became complicated. That's good. Song Qingshu raised his palm high, and Zhao Min's heart was hooked. Although Zhou Zhuo's eyes were closed, she could roughly feel his movements. She couldn't help but feel resentful in her heart. Even if I asked you to hit me, you don't have to hit me so hard. Song Qingshu's hand fell down heavily, but didn't fall on Zhou Zhuo's face. Instead, he took the opportunity to hold her waist and press her on his thigh. What are you doing? Zhou Zhuo didn't understand, and Zhao Min also looked confused. I'm hitting you. Zhou Zhuo's breasts. Her breasts pressed against his thigh, and the soft touch made Song Qingshu's heart flutter. Then he raised his hand high and slapped her butt. Zhou Zhuo moaned, and her whole body trembled involuntarily. Her pretty face turned red. You? How can you hit here? Zhao Min, who was next to him, was also dumbfounded. No, Song Qingshu, you're cheating. Song Qingshu said matter-of-factly, I'm not cheating. You just asked me to slap Zhuo 20 times, but you didn't say where. As soon as he finished speaking, he slapped Zhou Zhuo's buttocks again. Tut-tut. It was soft and felt really good. Stop it. Zhou Zhuo's skin was so red that water was about to ooze out. She hurriedly struggled to get up. Although she knew that Song Qingshu was helping her, it was too shameful to be spanked in this position in front of Zhao Min. Don't move. It'll be over soon. Song Qingshu lowered his head and said softly in her ear. Zhou Zhuo felt the gentleness in his words, and a trace of sweetness appeared in her heart. It seemed that this was not so embarrassing. However, she was still too embarrassed to look at Zhao Min's expression. She buried her head deep in Song Qingshu's arms and tried her best to close her lips, so as not to make any shameful sounds and make Zhao Min laugh at her. Occasionally, she couldn't help but bite Song Qingshu. Looking at the two of them snuggling up to each other, Zhao Min suddenly felt uncomfortable in her heart. Originally, she wanted to take revenge on Zhou Zhuo, but after spending half a day and wasting her precious request, the two of them seemed to be there instead. Aren't you ashamed? Looking at the two people in front of her who were affectionate, Zhao Min couldn't help but twitch her eyebrows. It's none of your business. You were the one who asked Qingshu to hit me. Zhou Zhuo, who was in Song Qingshu's arms, replied in a low, muffled voice. However, her voice was more gentle than usual. Adulterous couple. Zhao Min stomped her feet and ran out without looking back. Where are you going? Song Qingshu subconsciously asked. Back to Daxing Prefecture. Zhao Min's voice became more and more indistinct. She was clearly determined to leave. It's not safe on the road. Do you want me to send you back later? Song Qingshu shouted anxiously. There were Jin Kingdom cavalry and White Lotus Society along the way. She might be in danger if she was alone. No need. Zhao Min paused for a moment, then added, continue to slap him. 20 slaps, not one less. If Song Qingshu and Zhou Zhuo were not people with profound skills, it would be difficult for them to hear Zhao Min's words. Zhao Min was already quite a distance away, and her voice was almost inaudible. Song Qingshu and Zhou Zhuo looked at each other. Do you still want to hit him? Zhou Zhu bit her lip and stared at him with her big, watery eyes. Whatever. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't help but hit her again. Zhou Zhuo's eyes became even more watery. Qingshu. Although they were husband and wife, they spent more time apart than together. Moreover, they had misunderstandings before. They hadn't really reconciled for long. Zhou Zhuo's sweet voice was like a spark on the dry grassland. It instantly ignited a raging fire. Here? Don't you think it's inappropriate? Why don't we go back to Daxing Mansion and find a room? No, here. After an unknown period of time, Zhouji sat up from the pile of withered grass. Ruo sat up from the pile of withered grass, her long, smooth legs leaning to the side. Her cheeks were still flushed from earlier. She tidied up her clothes and rolled her eyes at Song Qingshu. Ever since you started practicing that technique, there aren't many women in this world who can withstand your torment. No wonder you're flirting everywhere. Song Qingshu smiled awkwardly. I can't help it. The skill of Tantra Buddhism is a little strange. Once you start practicing it, you can't stop. I'm sorry. Zhou Zhuo sighed softly. Sometimes, I think it would be great if you were still the innocent Song Qingshu from before. You'd be devoted to me. Before Song Qingshu could reply, she shook her head. If you were still the Song Qingshu from before, I probably wouldn't like you either. It seems that everything is destined. Song Qingshu's heart was deeply touched. He pulled her into his arms. Zhou Zhuo's face was pressed against his shoulder. She said softly, I don't care if you find other women. I only have one request. You can't find Zhao Min, Song Qingshu was speechless. It seemed that the grudge between these two women was really big. Zhou Zhuo continued. That demoness is the worst. She loves to steal men from me. I've already been stolen by her once. I don't want to be stolen by her a second time. Song Qingshu felt pity for her. Don't worry. There won't be a second time. Zhou Zhuo nodded. She tidied her messy hair and said softly, Qingshu, I'm going back to Jiangnan. Song Qingshu frowned. We just met, and you're leaving? Stay with me for a while. I can bring you around the Jin Kingdom. Zhou Zhuo smiled and shook her head slightly. Although Tang Sire was poisoned by you, she's extremely cunning. If she says something she shouldn't after returning to the White Lotus Society, I don't want all my efforts to go to waste. Song Qingshu immediately fell silent. He knew that Zhou Zhuo and Zhao Min's personalities were polar opposites. Zhao Min was hard on the outside, but soft on the inside. She could abandon everything for love and belong to the romantic faction. Zhou Zhuo was soft on the outside, but hard on the inside. She was extremely competitive. Seeing that Jiao and Xia Qingqing had brought their own generous dowries, how could she, as a wife, be willing to be outdone? Moreover, the White Lotus Society was her late father's foundation. Now that it had fallen into someone else's hands, no matter how he looked at it, he couldn't stop her from returning. Are we leaving now? Song Qing-shu was a little reluctant. Yes. Zhou Zhuruo nodded. Tang sire, I shouldn't have gone far at this time. If we delay any longer, I'm afraid I won't be able to catch up to her. All right then. You have to be careful in the White Lotus Society. If there's any danger, protect yourself first. Song Qing-shu reminded her worriedly. I know, my good husband. Zhou Zhuruo suddenly leaned over and kissed him. Then she happily walked out, looking back as she walked. You're not allowed to hook up with Zhao Min. Ever since he transmigrated to this world, he had seen more of the cold side of Zhou Zhuruo. Now that he saw her like a little girl, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but be a little dazed. At this time, in the Jin Kingdom's palace, Jin Shizong looked at Wang Yinping and the others who were kneeling on the ground and flew into a rage. The dignified laundry yard, the laundry yard that I rely on the most, is now a public toilet for people to come and go as they please? As the backbone leaders, none of you are in the palace at the critical moment. What's the use of having you? Come, drag all of you out and behead them. Chapter 875. To the side, the Minister of Internal Affairs, the Xinghua, hurriedly stepped forward and said, Your Majesty, although they are in the wrong, they don't deserve to die. It was just that the enemy was far too cunning this time. They plotted against them, causing the laundry yard to fail miserably. Now, those thieves are still at large, and they're the backbone of the laundry yard. This is the time for them to atone for their crimes. If we execute them now, it will only make our enemies happy. Jin Shizong hesitated for a moment before replying, Fine, then we will allow them to atone for their crimes. However, while they may be spared the death penalty, they cannot escape punishment. Pucha and Pusan Hutu have left their posts without permission. They will be demoted by 3 ranks, and their salary will be forfeited for a year. They will also be dragged out and flogged 80 times. As for Wang Yinping, she will be handed over to the imperial clan court. When he said that he would drag these people out and execute them, he was only putting on an act. Wang Yinping was his blood sister, and Pucha and Pusan Hutu were the heirs to the great families of the Jin Kingdom. If he really killed them, these great families would turn the heavens upside down. Thus, when the Xinghua pleaded for mercy, he took advantage of the situation and went down the slope. Thank you, Your Majesty, for your mercy. Pucha and Pusan Hutu secretly wiped away the cold sweat on their faces. In these past years, Jin Shizong had killed many ministers. The 2 of them were worried that he would execute them in a fit of anger. Guards had already come up to drag the 2 away, bringing them to the door to be flogged as punishment. Although the 2 of them were skilled in martial arts, they were still unable to withstand being flogged by a 10-foot long board. The 2 of them were able to endure the first 20 floggings, but after that, they couldn't bear it any longer. The 2 of them couldn't help but whimper. Isn't this General Pucha and General Pusan? What's going on? Suddenly, a familiar voice came from not too far away. The 2 of them looked up and saw that it was the Hai Ling King, Wan Yanliang. Greetings, Hai Ling King. Please forgive this lowly official for not being able to greet you right now. The 2 of them bitterly smiled. There's no need. The Hai Ling King hurriedly signaled for the executioner to pause. He moved closer to the 2 of them and asked, Why were you flogged? Don't mention it. It's all because of the laundry yard. Fu Sanhutu sighed. I've also heard about the incident at the laundry parlor. The other party's plan is very thorough, and it's not something you could have predicted. Wan Yinliang comforted the 2 of them for a while, then suddenly pretended to inadvertently mention it. From what you've said, when you left, you were sure that the princess of Qi country was still around. That's why you left. In that case, the one who bears the greatest responsibility should be the Duke of Qi country. Lord, how did His Majesty deal with her? Pucha Shiji's face darkened, and he kept his mouth shut. Pusan Hutu, on the other hand, indignantly said, "She's His Majesty's sister. What can we do with her? We just handed her over to the imperial clan court." "Who to?" Pu Cha hurriedly cut him off. Fu Sanhu also realized that if his words were to reach the ears of the emperor, he would not be able to bear the consequences. He hurriedly laughed a few times and said, "Wang Ye, I was just speaking casually. Please don't take it to heart." Wang Yinliang said in a low voice, "Don't worry, I won't speak of it." He then stood up and pulled the executioner to the side, whispering to him. He even secretly stuffed a large wad of banknotes into the executioner's hands. This scene was witnessed by Pu Cha and Fu Sanhu, and the two of them looked at each other in dismay, not knowing what the other was thinking. "I still have to enter the palace to meet the emperor, so I can't stay here for long. I've already discussed it with them. When the execution is carried out, it'll be all thunder and no rain, so that the two of you won't have to suffer too much." Hearing Wang Yinliang's words, the two of them were moved. "Wang Ye, there's no need to be so polite. We're all officials of the same court, so I'll definitely help you if I can." Wang Yinliang smiled at the two of them, then hurried towards the Hall of Benevolence. Looking at his back as he left, Fu Sanhu couldn't help but sigh. Among all these princes, only the hailing king treats the wise with respect. Pu Cha had a complicated expression as well. "That's right. It's a pity that he's a bastard." /T. After Wang Yinliang arrived at the Hall of Benevolence, Jin Shizong pulled him over to play chess as he asked, "Hailing king, who do you think is behind the incident at the laundry yard?" Wang Yinliang smiled awkwardly. "Your Majesty is wise and knows what to do. This subject doesn't dare to speak carelessly. Just say what I want you to say. Don't beat around the bush." Jin Shizong glared at him. Among all the princes in the capital, the one he trusted the most was Wang Yinliang. First of all, he was indeed very capable, and he was also the eldest of his generation, so he had high prestige. Second of all, Wang Yinliang's family was a bastard, so they didn't have the qualifications to fight for the throne. Thus, after the incident at the laundry yard, the first official he summoned was Wang Yinliang. "As your Majesty commands." Wang Yinliang hesitated for a moment, then organized his thoughts and said, "I heard that His Majesty has sent the laundry yard to investigate. Regarding the matter of Wei Wang, in the end, something happened in the laundry yard. Haha, this matter can be complicated, but it can also be simple. His Majesty doesn't have an heir, so who benefits the most?" Jin Shizong's pupil shrank. "Are you talking about Changsheng Wang? This subject didn't say that. Everything needs to be decided by your Majesty." Wang Yinliang was an old fox, so he didn't want to get himself involved. He wanted to sit behind the scenes and watch Jin Shizong and Changsheng Wang fight to the death. He didn't want to get himself involved. Jin Shizong nodded thoughtfully. "Let's continue playing chess." After a while, Jin Shizong looked at Wang Yinliang's departing figure and waved to the air beside him. "Have you found the person who sent the letter to Pu Cha and Shiji?" The Xinghua flashed out from the shadows and said, "Your Majesty, we've found them. Although those people have changed hands several times, we followed the clues and found out that they are from Prince Changsheng's mansion." Wang Yuan. Jin Shizong's eyes were filled with killing intent. He thought about how he had suppressed his love for Tao Yao for the sake of the country and his brothers. He didn't expect that the other party would make the first move. Since that was the case, he couldn't blame him for bringing up the past again. If everything goes according to plan, Jin Shizong will definitely suspect Changsheng Wang. The brothers have been suspicious of each other for a long time, and this will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Changsheng Wang's fate is already sealed, and with Wei Wang's death, you're the most likely candidate to succeed to the throne. In Prince Su's residence, Zhao Min was analyzing the current situation to Wang Yinyong. "Your Highness's foresight is truly divine. This prince admires you from the bottom of my heart." The throne, which he hadn't even dared to think about before, was now within reach. Wang Yinyong looked at the beautiful woman in front of him, his heart filled with admiration and fear. Jin Shizong and Changsheng Wang's father was the second son of Jin Taizu, and with Wei Wang's death, the second branch was destined to be cut off. Wang Yinyong's father was the third son of Jin Taizu, and with the second branch killing each other, he was the first in line to succeed the throne. As for Wan Yin Liang, because his father was a concubine, he was not considered in the family tree. After sending off Zhou Zhuhua, Song Qingshu returned to Tang Kuo's residence in low spirits. Just as he reached the door, he saw Wan Yin Ping glaring at him with a frosty expression. In a chapter that you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.